All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the June 25th Board of Supervisors meeting. We'll call this meeting to order here at 9. Did anyone have a moment of silence? Go ahead, Supervisor Sabatier.
I do. I have actually two. One, over the weekend, we were told of a colleague of ours that works over at Lake County Office of Education and is a major part of the continuum of care, unexpectedly passed away, Holly Hanna. She was an amazing human being who cared a lot about her community, the youth that she served, and was a huge asset to the continuum of care. She will be greatly missed, and so wanted to make sure to get to that because I completely missed it yesterday. And also, I'm not going to name any names, but we had two young individuals who unfortunately got themselves involved in a mutual motorcycle accident. They are recovering, but they are recovering very slowly, and unfortunately, it's going to take some time, but I want to have them in our hearts and prayers in hopes that they recover as soon as possible. These are very young adults who have a long life ahead of them, and wish them the best in their recovery.
Supervisor Pyska, could you lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All right, so we'll move on to our extra item, 4.3. We have to accept it we have to accept it first, Lloyd, as well. So we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to accept this extra item, including public input. We got to do public input, Lloyd.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So for the first motion, your board may want to consider any explanation or introduction from Agricultural Commissioner Vanderbilt to demonstrate that that board has an immediate need to take this action, which came to the attention of the county after the agenda was posted.
All right, Catherine.
Hi. Good morning, Catherine Vanderbilt, Agricultural Commissioner. I appreciate your time in considering this morning, as well as the help of Admin Office yesterday. It was just brought to my attention yesterday that the California Department of Food and Ag notified me if they do not receive a signed approved agreement, which extends our current noxious weed agreement by Monday, June 30th, then the agreement will be terminated and we will forfeit approximately $55,000.
All right. Any questions? Public? Should I open it? I'll open it up to the public if there's any questions, or anyone on Zoom. All right, I'll bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair, due to the this coming up after the posting of the agenda and action needed to be taken prior to the next following regular meeting, I move to approve this as an extra item.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then that motion carries, and I'll read off the item. Consideration of resolution approving amended agreement 23-0287-000SA with the California Department of Food and Agriculture to extend the expiration date from June 30th, 2025 to December 31st, 2027, and increase the agreement by $55,190.30 for a new total of $97,611.30 for reimbursement of noxious weed program. And then I didn't know if you have more or
No, not unless your board has questions.
any questions? I will open it up to the public. All right. Bring it back to the board for action.
I move that we accept the consideration for amendment 23-0287-000SA in the amount of agreement $55,190.30 for a total of $97,611.30.
You're just offering the resolution, is that?
Yes, in addition to that motion
Okay,
language
and you
offered
can
to
then
resident.
just offer the resolution.
I offer the resolution.
Resolution has been offered.
All
There you
right.
go.
Supervisor Owen,
Aye.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Rasmussen?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
And Supervisor Crandall?
Aye. All right.
Great.
Resolution's passed.
Thank you.
No, you did fine. Believe me, I've done it before where I've offered the resolution. They're like, no, you got a motion, so it's happened before. All right. So we'll continue on from yesterday on to our budget presentations. Yesterday, we left off at Public Works. All right. All right, welcome to the show. I don't know who's leading, if it's Alicia or Lars.
I'll just start with an introduction. Lars Ewing, Interim Public Works Director, and I'll look over at Susan Parker, who is also the Interim Public Works Director. Really, the star of the show here is Alicia Ayala, the Deputy Public Works Director. She'll be presenting the budgets. Obviously, we are in a transition period. And so we want to ensure that the board is certainly well aware of that, but wanted to make sure that we addressed that here. I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can. Same with Susan. Alicia knows the budget, but I think it's important to note that she prepared the budget under the former Public Works Director. And I would offer and just say that she really did prepare it. I think there wasn't a whole lot of involvement from his end, I believe, but she did prepare it under what she knew to be his vision. So recognizing that there very well may be changes, we just at this point it's been less than a week. So from a direction perspective, we look forward to hearing from your board so that we can go back to the drawing board and see what we need to do. But I have full confidence in Alicia's and her team's ability. I've been up in public work, so I saw that firsthand. A decade and plus ago, but over the last week, spending a lot of time there, she's grown. Her team has grown in their awareness, their expertise. So she's doing a great job, and her team is as well. So she'll be presenting here to support and answer any questions. But Alicia, nothing but confidence and thanks for your work.
All right.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Board. Alicia Ayala, Deputy Public Works Director, Administration. First, I'd like to start off by giving thanks to our physical staff that helped prepare the budgets and also to the DPW team for their support. So Public Works has a total of 40 budget units, 9 major ones and 31 smaller budgets. And I'll start off with 1903, DPW, Public Works Administration. This budget provides physical and administrative support services to all the other budget unit divisions in Public Works. And these budgets, this budget is funded by the other budget units. Our administrative staff also provides customer service, and our physical staff prepares budgets, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and bills the grants in compliance with local, state, and federal physical controls. Currently, we have 11 full-time positions, with 5 being vacant. And then I'll move on to Budget Unit 1908, Engineering and Inspection. Our engineering staff manages the development of our capital improvement projects, and also our surveying staff reviews records of surveys, parcel map subdivisions, and also requests from planning for voluntary mergers, certificate of compliance, minor use permits, and I know there's more. And in this budget unit, we still use Coastland for engineering staff augmentation, and this budget unit is funded by general fund and also by budget unit 3011 road division, as the capital projects they work on are county maintained roads and bridges. And currently in this budget, there's 10 full-time positions with 3 vacancies. Moving on to Lamson Field Airport Operations, budget unit 3122. This is a budget is where we have the maintenance of the airport grounds, the automated weather observing system, the AWAS system, and we continue to maintain and provide the pilot's lounge for the pilots. And there's a possible that we'll be increasing rates, a possibility we'll be increasing rates and other new fees, which we're currently reviewing. And this will help fund the airport. Currently, it's funded by airport fees for overnight parking, leases, aeronautical activity permits, and general fund contribution. And our extra help facilities maintenance worker position is vacant currently. Moving on to Lamson Capital, Budget Unit 3123. This is our capital project budget where we hope to complete the design of the East Apron Phase 1 and commence the Phase 2. And there also will be a wildlife hazard assessment done at the airport, and we continue to use Lochnar as the consultant services to assist the county with grant application processes. And then we can move on to Twin Lakes, Budget Unit 8463. This is a county service area for Twin Lakes subdivision, which the road department continues to provide annual general maintenance as needed and chip seals as needed. Budget units 8469 through 8472 and 8483 through 8492, county service area, various zone of benefits. These zone of benefits are kept in separate accounts. This year, 2 zone of benefits will end at the end of fiscal year 25-26, Zone A, Gordon Springs, and Zone B, Stonefield. And we're going to do one last chip seal, summer of 2026. And then for all the other ones, the road department continues to provide general maintenance as needed. Budget unit.
Are you, do those CSA, or do they know that? Do they know it's ending?
I believe, well, when they, what is it called, when they did the ballot?
Yeah.
It was a 20-year, where they tax themselves.
Right.
So
We can put out a
we can
notice.
put out a notice.
That would be helpful, because if people bought in or moved in during that period and don't understand the history and then have an expectation that it's continuing or that
Okay.
it's county maintained.
Yeah, we can put out a notice. You're welcome, thank you. And then moving on to Budget Unit 3062 and 3081. This is our road improvement subdivision budget unit. It was created to track subdivision commercial developments that are road improvements as a condition of the approval, and the funding is kept individually, and currently all the funding is kept in reserves. Budget Unit 9905, ISF Central Garage. This is the Central Garage operation is responsible for providing safe and economical automotive and truck transportation for most of the county departments. Currently, we have 148 pool fleet vehicles, with 9 vehicles are scheduled to be replaced, and we plan to add 1 new plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. Budget Unit 9907, ISF Heavy Equipment Rental Operations. This division is responsible for performing scheduled services, maintenance, and repairs to approximately 114 pieces of equipment that is used by the road division. And the road division is charged an hourly rate on equipment used, which recovers operational maintenance cost as well as the component for replacement costs. Which moves us on to Budget Unit 9908 and 9909, which is the restricted replacement budget. And this year, we are replacing a total of 5 pieces of equipment. And then Budget Unit 9911, Fleet Maintenance. This is the budget where our personnel division is housed. Currently, we have 6 positions, and 1 position is vacant. And the revenue generated through the sale of labor services to the other budget units, that is the funding source. And Road Division, Budget Unit 3011. The Road Maintenance Division is responsible for protecting and maintaining 613 miles of county public road, which 125 miles of unpaved dirt roads and 125 bridges and thousands of culverts. The road crew will be starting and completing a countywide chip seal program that will result in approximately 37 miles of pavement preservation. And then our capital projects, we are focusing on our Kelseyville sidewalks, the completion of Cobb Area Road rehabilitation, and just pushing forward with South Main Street, Soda Bay Road rehabilitation, as they have some hard deadlines on funding. And then we have a total of 15 different bridge projects that are in different stages with CEQA, NEPA, environmental, preliminary engineering, right-of-way, and construction phase. And these are all funded by the HBB program, Highway Bridge Program. And we have an additional 25 of other road improvement projects that are federally funded, Cal OES, FEMA, and SB1 funded. And this budget unit is funded by property taxes, HUDA, highway user tax, SB1, state exchange, regional surface transportation program, fees of the construction road impact fees, and then grants through Caltrans. And currently, we have 34 positions, and 4 of them are vacant. So I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Supervisor Sabatier?
Thank you for all that. I have a couple of questions. One for the assessed areas, the CSAs that get the road work. That is our crew that does the chip seal in those areas, or do we contract that out?
Our crew does that,
Okay.
yeah.
And the reason I ask is I'm wondering if, and it's just a statement, it's not I want to see that changed. With the amount of money that's left over every year in that road department, which could be used for roads, if they're spending time working on someone else's who is paying for a personal benefit rather than a county benefit, it might take away from them being able to use more dollars to do work somewhere else in the county, and that maybe looking at what's the difference in cost in contracting it out. I think that there's a privilege to assessing yourself versus others who may not have that privilege to assess themselves, and that the money that we get through whether it's SB1 or whatever other HUDA tax that we might collect for road work, that we could kind of have multiple avenues of how it gets done. Some gets contracted, some gets done, and I know that we do good work. I've seen the chip seal work, but looking to get more done if that's possible. But I know we don't do them every single year. We do them when the funding is available and when it's needed.
Yeah,
And I also think it's a good idea to see if it can keep going, because how else are we going to get that funding to be able to continue those repairs on those roads? And obviously that'll be up to the people that vote. I'm wondering, I don't know that right now is the right time, but I'd love to have a deeper dive conversation, I guess in the near future, just about the road, not department, but the funds that go into it. Because we see huge amounts, 28 million, 30 million, and then we only spend 9 million, and then it just stays there. And we know that we have some of the worst roads, at least within the county and the 3 jurisdictions, we have some of the worst roads. I'd love to have a better concept of what needs to be done in order to make sure that if we say we're going to do $28 million worth of roads, which is kind of telling the public we plan on doing that, if we don't, then we're not meeting the expectation that we kind of put out there. I want to try to meet that expectation, and how do we do that? And so, again, it's not for today, it's not for now, because I don't want to see that money taken away. If not, I would love to see the reserves being put into it so we can do more roads, but it's about getting them engineered, it's about getting them ready, and it's about getting them contracted out. But I'd love to have in the future, within the next 3 months, a deeper dive conversation to make sure that we have a good plan in place and being able to fulfill what the public is expecting us to fulfill.
So I'm absolutely happy to do that, whether that's with the current interim directorship or future. But I think it's important to note that most of the projects on the capital asset list, for example, those are non-discretionary. Those are specific. The funding is coming down the pipeline for that specific bridge or that specific project. So some of it is discretionary, where yes, we can choose where we're spending the money. But you see a large dollar amount, certainly, in 30, 40 million. The bulk of that is for the bridge projects where the federal government and the state have created a specific program that we tapped into and began tapping into it decades ago. So in as much as, goodness, 40 million, why can't we maintain our roads? That's a short answer to say a good portion of it is it's something we can't just pull that, half of that and put it over onto chip seals. It's specific. So certainly your board is aware of that, but I think it's helpful for the general public to be aware. But look forward to the deeper dive.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, and we are in transition, so we have a lot of grace for that right now. But I think what would be really helpful is to let the public and the board know what's scheduled for this summer and what those budget amounts for those projects are anticipated to be. And I think that will just help answer a lot of questions because we are in construction season and it's something that we do ask for every year. So I think that level of transparency is something that it's desperately needed on an annual basis.
Yeah. I'll offer that that's very easy for this summer.
Great.
It's already in the works. Some of the projects are already under construction. So some people are experiencing that with traffic control, so that's already there. But certainly something going out for this summer and the next summer or next year and beyond. That's a different story to try to get the game plan together.
Yeah, and just to follow up one other thing, sorry, Vice Chair. There are public safety concerns as we're in fire season of when road construction is happening. And I did get contacted by one of the fire chiefs, and I think I passed it along to you, but a lot has happened in the last week. Just so the public is aware, if there's going to be closures during the day when work is happening, if there's a need to evacuate, I think it's really important that all the public services understand where those potential closures could be so that they can let their staff know, work around, find different sources for water, so that everyone's on the same page and we don't have any dangerous situations.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I appreciate the notation on the hard deadlines on South Main. I am concerned about that because of those deadlines, so just wanted to note that.
Microphone.
Sorry.
There you go.
So I just wanted to note that. And then earlier in the year, we were advertising for like an airport manager assistant. Did that ever happen, or is that not on the table anymore?
No, it's not on the table anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just from recollection from the outside in, I believe the airport manager and airport/right-of-way manager was reclassified as a capital project manager. I may be incorrect, so I know there were some transitions there. So to say that, yes, that position is no longer on the books. The requirement to do the work is still there. There is. We do have staff, extra help staff, and extra help capital project manager. Your board is familiar with Jan Coppinger. She is right now pretty much the point on the airport. She's getting up to speed and getting up to speed very quickly. So she's serving that role. The right-of-way piece is kind of spread out throughout the department with project managers, but largely with consultants. When we get to say a South Minnesota Bay Road project, it's heavy on the consulting side for right-of-way specialists. So hopefully that answers it, that on paper you're not going to see airport manager or right-of-way, but there's staff that's assigned to do that work.
Yeah, that covers it. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then my last question was, not too long ago, I had heard that we weren't going to do any road grading this year on the county roads that we have. Is that the case?
Well, I can't speak to what was the case, but that was pretty much the first thing that we addressed. Jim Hale, road superintendent, had a plan, and we pulled it back up, and he's planning on that right now. So we had already put out some bids for chips and oil and oh goodness. I can't recall what else we need there, but put out the bids for the material. The guys are gearing up. We're looking for the middle of August to start that. You heard Alicia talk about 37 miles. I've heard 35, 37, but and I just want to applaud the crew. When I was in Public Works, over a decade ago, we were hard pressed to get more than 10 or 15 miles a year, and as I understand from Jim, there's advancements in getting a new chip spreader, which your board probably is aware of. I was not because I've been out of it, but that's a huge help. But having staff, the road crew that knows what they're doing, and let them go do what they know to do. So yes, that is happening, and I fully expect it will continue to happen. Given the SB1 funding, which is new to me, so that's huge. So the road crew is out there doing the work, and that'll come with a presentation, I guess I'll say, at least an awareness to the public of here's the projects that we're working on this summer. Not working on, but are doing this summer.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? You basically answered mine. Thanks for asking, or Not hearing any. I'll open it up to the public. If there's anyone, come on up.
Elizabeth Larson, Lake County News. So on your capital asset list, I do see 4.6 million for the Lakeside Slide Hill Road. That is the Lakeside Heights slide repair, correct? It's got a yes next to it. Is that scheduled to take place this year?
So the short answer is at this point, I don't know. I haven't done a deep dive into all of them. The yes means authorization to spend the money as of July 1, rather than waiting for the final budget in September. So that's what the yes means. The appropriations that are there, at this point, I'm not able to answer it. Alicia, if you are, you're welcome to, but I'm not going to hold you to that. So I have not had a one-on-one with the project manager for that project yet, but that's coming later today. So.
Also, there is a project in Lucerne, and I don't see it on here. It's a road project on Foothill where people are falling through the road. Is that going to be repaired at any point?
I'm not familiar. Perhaps we can talk.
I'll
Is that the
talk to you after.
bridge? That's the bridge? I remember at the town hall, most recently, that bridge is on, it was on one of the lists. I don't know if it was on a list for, to be done, or if it was on the list to be planned for, but I know
Okay.
that they were looking into that. It was brought up. I think I can get you that. I know, I'll have to go back to that meeting and.
I'll check with staff. I don't see it on the bridge list either, so, okay, thank you.
It very well could be that it's what's called a short span bridge. It wouldn't be on here for capital, but,
It would be a short span, because I
okay.
think it's like 15 feet long.
okay.
Reason I remember is because Jim Robbins was really interested in that, and he didn't seem upset at that meeting, so. Yeah. All right. Any other public questions? No one on Zoom? All right, I'll bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve budget units 1903, 1908, 3011, 3062 through 3081, 3122, 3123, 8463, 8464 through 8472, 8483 through 8492, 9905, 9907, 9908 through 9909, and 9911.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Lars
Thank
and
you,
Alicia.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next is our sheriff. Sheriff's with his numerous budget items. We'll do a break after this one. It's going to be long.
I don't know, you wasn't too long last year.
All right.
Good morning, Board.
Bingham.
So just a quick update on my end, and then I'll turn it over to my finance manager, Mary Beth, to go through our budgets. Our projects are progressing well. The main office armory project is going well. From last I heard, they're about 4 months ahead of schedule, so that's great. We should be breaking ground here pretty soon on our EOC remodel, get that up to a resilient building, and then increase the capabilities of our Emergency Operations Center coming into this season. Currently, our staffing is getting a little bit better. I think we hired 2 new Deputy Sheriff Corrections, one starting Monday next week, one starting on July 14th, which will get us to 1 unstaffed position in corrections. So almost to fully staffed in corrections to what we reduced it to a year and a half ago. So that's good. Deputy side, we are, I believe, currently we did give up the 1 position for the pay raises, which I think it's a tough balance working with the CAO's office, but retention is important, keeping what we currently have, and then knowing that we had those vacant positions. I think it was the right choice moving forward, and then we'll definitely come back to the board once we get to a position that's a little bit better with staffing. We currently have 2 that are going to the Siskiyou Academy starting on June 30th, and we have 5 in backgrounds for deputy sheriffs right now. 4 of them out of the Stockton Academy, and I believe 1 lateral that's looking at coming to the sheriff's office. So things are starting, that pendulum is starting to swing a little bit better for law enforcement, and we're starting
That
to see
is
some
incredible.
progress. Yes.
Great job, both of you.
So, and we've started a new recruitment program within the sheriff's office, which is really helping. We have the run recruitment sergeant, but we've designated 3 deputies that are younger in generation. So it's not somebody who's been in law enforcement for 20 years that's in their late 30s, early 40s going out and trying to recruit young men and women in their 20s. We have some of our newer deputies that have 2 to 3 years on that we're sending to academies now and to do that recruitment for us, and so they can give that honest opinion of the culture of the sheriff's office and what life is like in Lake County, and I think that's benefiting us greatly in that.
What's your vacancy?
Currently, we have 4 vacancies in the deputy sheriff ranks. 1 will be in corrections at our current staffing numbers.
So 3 vacancies in the sheriff's department itself without the,
Well, currently in the sworn side between deputy sheriff corrections and deputy sheriff on the operations side, we have 5 vacancies, civilian professional staff, sorry, I don't like to call them civilian staff, professional staff. I believe we have, correct me if I'm wrong, Mary Beth, I think 3 vacancies. We just hired 3 into our finance division, which is great. We have an administrative staff position, and in dispatch, we have 2 dispatchers and 1 supervisor position that are currently vacant, and we're opening a recruitment this month for those to hopefully fill those. That dispatch position is a very difficult position to hire for, requires a lot of technical data entry skills, and so it's a hard one to get people qualified for. So.
I'm just looking for South County representation.
Well, and I'm, with all of that said, I'm going to give my next caveat. And again, those numbers are for bare bones minimum staffing in the sheriff's office. That is to do the bare minimum that is required of the sheriff's office. It is not the, I don't want to call them luxury positions, but those extra positions, the beat-oriented deputies, the school resource officers, increasing the size of the copter unit, increasing my detectives bureau. Currently I have 4 detectives and 1 sergeant. 15 years ago, we had 6 detectives and a sergeant in there. So those numbers that I'm giving, 29 deputies on the operations side, 35 on the correction side, that is the bare number of sworn staff to do the job. And so if my goal, hope in the next 4 to hopefully, 8 years of my position as the sheriff is to increase that staffing so that we can get to those beat-oriented deputies, to the school resource officers, to having that increased proactive enforcement copter team that is not just a North Shore team, it is a county-wide team that can be directed to resolve those problems county-wide in all of the communities. When we're having in the North Shore or South Shore, we're having that rash of burglaries, I can take that team and I can put them in that area and say, hey, the next 2 weeks you guys are working in this area, resolve this community problem, and then move them around as needed. That's the long-term goals that I have for the department, along with a few other things. But again, the numbers that we're striving for right now are bare bones, minimum, basic, do the job. So with that said, unless you have any questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Beth, my finance manager, to go over the budgets.
So the Sheriff's Department has 7 general fund budgets. I won't go over each one individually unless you need to know the numbers. If you have questions, you can ask and he'll respond, I'm sure. We also have 12 special funded budgets. We have 2 budgets that we're not running right now. They are grant-related budgets, and currently we don't have grants. So 2 of our budgets are at 0. And then budget 1785, which is the construction budget, we've turned over to both public services and county admin. So if there's questions on that, that has to do with the armory, the OES culvert, the jail generator, and there was one other thing I don't recall. But if you'd like, I can go over each budget individually, or if you have questions specified, however you guys want to do it.
All right, just continue.
Up to you, Chair.
Yeah, you can just go through it. And
Through,
we'll-
okay.
Yeah.
So 2201 is the sheriff coroner budget. There are no changes that we're making to that budget. 2202 is the central dispatch budget. We transferred 200,000 into the dispatch budget a couple weeks ago at board. That was for the replacement of the servers that are going to be at end of life come later this year. There's also 120,000 currently in that account, which we're going to leave in case there's some kind of a crossover between when the equipment comes in and when the bill is actually paid. 2203 is our marijuana budget. It consists of DEA and U.S. Forest Service monies. 2204 is our court security budget. It's a general fund budget, but the money comes out of trial court security, so it comes out of a trust fund. So there really isn't a general fund cost to that. Same with 2205, that's our Marine Patrol budget. The money from that comes from Department of Boating and Waterways. There is some general fund cost to that. The state doesn't reimburse liability insurance, so that is a general fund cost. 2301 is the jail budget. There is one change that we're making to it. We're adding $101,114 to 6160. The revenue is coming from AB 109. I believe Casey's already made that change. The reason for that is the fencing project at the jail hasn't been completed. We had anticipated that it would be done before the end of the year. There were some issues with that, so we're carrying over the amount of money that we need. So when the project is completed, we can pay the bill. 2704 is our OES budget. It consists of grant funding, mainly. That's what I have for general fund. Do you have questions on that? Nope.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Bruno's going to have a question. Luke?
I just, and I apologize, I hope I don't, stop me if I'm going into a budget unit that you have not yet talked about, but I just had some questions about certain things. On budget unit 2202, the dispatch, on the revenue 6660, I'm just kind of curious what that is, charge for services, because we adopted 0 last year, and just why 0, why come back, like what is exactly the service that is charged?
So 6660, excuse me, should have revenue from last year.
So when we see the actuals, there'll be a number in there. It was just a very conservative 0 that was placed in there in the first place?
I don't have my computer, so I can't look that up. Casey, was there 0 from last year? That includes LPD dispatch services, the repeaters that the fire districts and Caltrans and Fish and Game, that goes into that account, as well as Upper Lake rents a space in the Hunter repeater. So those should...
I'm going to make a guess that the 6660 probably ended up being placed in 5630. That's why it kind of 0 on the other one, and then all of a sudden it shows up, and so I feel like we're interchanging codes, and that might be why. So I was just curious as to something that went to 0 and came back, what was going on for a whole year.
Okay.
The
The revenue in that stays pretty consistent.
Yeah.
There is a CPI increase each year in most of those.
And that makes perfect sense now that I kind of see the two different items. I don't want to necessarily state that there needs to be a change, but I am concerned about the low projection for the salaries. I know that we want to keep the dispatchers and the officers out in the field. That's not always what happens. And knowing that the actuals from 23-24, when we did have a lot of officers going into, or deputies going into dispatch, that it was a 687,000, and here it's 661. And so I don't know if maybe it comes from a different bucket that pays for the deputies to be in dispatch, or if dispatch pays for those that are now working in the dispatch. I'm nervous just because I know that there's a lot of movement and flexibility to make sure, because you can't have deputies out there if you don't have dispatch, and so dispatch always has to at least remain to a certain fill rate in order to make sure that deputies out there know what's going on, receive communication, and so on. So I was just a little nervous by seeing it being dropped to 661, especially with the raises that were just approved recently. Want to keep going here.
So can I address that?
Please.
So the actuals for this, we have not had any deputies in dispatch this fiscal year unless they're working on overtime. This budget currently is in balance with all of the dispatch positions funded, with the exception of some salary savings. We took out 126,627 in salary savings, which is like equivalent to one dispatcher position. We've got 3 vacancies, so we felt that that was sufficient for that. So the salaries that were just approved, of course, aren't included in these projections. So we may have to address that either at finals or at mid-year, which is our intention.
Yeah. And again, my goal is just to state my concern, because dispatch is absolutely necessary, and just looked a little low, but I appreciate the comments. I wanted to go to the 2206, which is the rural and small counties. I know that part of that was supposed to be used for the upgrade of the, or I guess the upgrade of the armory. I'm not seeing capital improvements coming. Was that a one-time pull, or is it a continuous pull? Because I'm not seeing anything in 6274, which would be capital improvements.
I believe the CAO's office can correct me if I'm wrong, that was originally set aside for that prior to the bond being received or considered for the project. That's what that money was set aside for, and now that we have the bond, it's not, I don't believe that we're intending to use it for that. We're going to use it for rural sheriffs, as is stated in AB 443 for frontline law enforcement. At this point, we've already designated a little over $1 million for our body-worn camera upgrade program, which we desperately need. I'm losing body cameras at about 1 a week right now, and we just got that contract approved. We should have our new body cameras hopefully by the end of this month and out on the street, and then also putting body cameras into the correctional facility and going to a cloud-based system, which is going to be a lot better for discovery for the DA's office and then just management for us alone. So we're carving out some of that money for that, and then we have other projects that we're looking at for frontline law enforcement purposes to improve some of the technologies and services that we're providing to the community.
Okay. I guess I still was in the mindset that that was going to be used for that, and didn't catch up to the part where we exchanged that for the bond. My other one is, I don't know what to do again for this, but I know that I'm seeing a continuous in our Marine Patrol. Unfortunately, just had 3 drownings recently, and I know that 2 of them are not necessarily in Clear Lake, so it's not like you can have a Marine Patrol in Hidden Valley or over at Highland Springs. But just, I have concerns that we are staying stagnant and yet still experience some of those issues. I know we also have issues of people that are speeding by very close to the shore, and there's just not a lot of enforcement out there outside of very high tourist times of Memorial Day, 4th of July. You guys are out there in masses. You must get a lot of extra help that comes out during those times. But just at one point in time, I would love to see that budget increase a little bit, just because the concerns for the amount of area to patrol and the amount of patrol that's out there just makes you guys almost invisible.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Unfortunately, those are some of the hard decisions that I have to make with the staffing that I have. I would like to have a more robust Marine Patrol program, absolutely. Unfortunately, we relied heavily on 900-hour employees. We had, I think, 5 or 6 900-hour employees that were covering a lot of that time for us during this season, and I think 5 of them retired last year. So I lost quite a bit of my 900-hour boat patrol deputies out of the position, so it kind of left us in a position that I had to make the decision of, do I staff patrol or do I put another deputy into Marine Patrol? And it came down to responding to calls for service, so I left the sergeant in there. I believe we have 2 900 hours now. We had one that stayed. We were able to hire a second 900-hour employee for Marine Patrol, and I believe I have a third one that retired that I'm going to be able to convince to come back and be a 900-hour Marine Patrol during the boating season. So we're slowly working on trying to get at least part-time annuitants into those positions to help with some of that activity and that presence out on the lakes.
Funding works for Marine Patrol is the Department of Boating and Waterways gives us $315,312 each year. The rest of the money comes from the county boat taxes, which we're required to expend in the boat patrol unit before we pull money from the $315,000. It has been reduced. You know, it started with COVID when, you know, people weren't working and people weren't out on the water and stuff. So any money in over the $315,000 would have to come from the county general fund. And of course, like Luke said, if we have staffing, then we would need additional funding. So whatever money is not expended out of 2205, which is boat patrol, would come from the sheriff coroner budget. So hopefully that explains it.
I have a question about that. So how long has it been that amount, 315,000?
As long as I've been here, which is a really long time.
Okay, thank you.
Which does not help when everything else becomes more expensive. And just my last comment, I know we dropped a lot of positions that just weren't being filled and nobody was laid off. It almost appears like you're full at your jail facility. I just want to kind of mimic the same comment that you made. Just because it looks full doesn't mean that it's getting all of the features and services that you would expect, because I think we went from like 70 to 50 something, 56 in total positions. So it looks good on paper, but it's not necessarily simple as far as the workload based on each individual there. I do have some concerns, at least based on the last actuals, on the amount of overtime that is occurring, and I'm going to guess with the small number that we still have, that overtime is still going to continue, because at least the last actuals, it's almost like 25%, close to 30% of the wages are overtime. And so I'm going to ask you offline to get a little bit further information about overtime, just because I know it's unfortunately a norm for law enforcement, but at the same time, at one point, I feel like there might be a better way to take a look at how we can attract more people into those positions without having to pay the time and a half, even though it's kind of nice to get the time and a half too. I worry about the stressful work that is required of the folks who are hired to do that work. I would prefer they not be overworked, and I'm sure that seeing that big number in OT means that we're asking a lot of them.
Yeah, you're correct, and I appreciate your comment on that, and I agree with you 100%. The job is very stressful. The job is very hard. I'm sure you guys are aware. And when currently we're on mandated overtime in the correctional facility. Again, 35 is the bare bones minimum, and that is in a perfect world when everybody comes to work and nobody is out on workers' comp or 4850 or anything like that. Once I have somebody call in sick or somebody goes out on an injury, which occurs quite often in a correctional facility or on the operations side, then I'm having to backfill that position with overtime because we are at a bare staffing minimum to get the job done. And that's not including having a medical officer or a search team or any of those other things that are necessary in the facility but aren't mandated. So we're holding what is required by law and the mandated positions to get the job done. So, and then again, like you said, and again, I appreciate that and thank you for that. We risk the potential of burning our employees out by making them work so much. They like the overtime, who doesn't? But at some point it gets to be excessive, and then it starts to wear on them in their personal lives, which causes other issues and morale problems in the organization. So.
Well, I just want to congratulate you again on this new recruitment strategy and having success with people in the academy and signing up. It wasn't that many years ago when there was almost zero. And I know we talked about the pendulum swinging, and here we are. So I know this has been a program that you have been building, trying to get to this place, and I know we'll see it continue.
It's very encouraging. I mean,
Yeah.
3-4 years ago, we do a deputy recruitment, we might have 5 or 6 people apply. I think our last deputy sheriff corrections recruitment, we had almost 50 people apply.
That's great.
So just seeing those numbers is very encouraging.
Yeah.
I think too, just thinking about it, with the copter program, I know that covers a sergeant and a deputy. And so I know that I don't know if it's, maybe you probably can help me with this, Casey. I don't know where it's at in yours. It might be in the cannabis or in admin, because I know that's a specific program funded by cannabis. But I think that gives you some room. I may be wrong, but it might give you room for overtime or for those other positions. And I know it's hard to recruit, but I'm just throwing that out there so that, you know, there is a coverage, if you will. But maybe you can help me with that. I don't know where it's at in either.
So on the position allocation, those positions are called out as copter funded positions, but it is budgeted in, I believe, 2201, and then is also in cannabis.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We'll get to that.
All right.
Did you have an additional question on Marine Patrol, on how that funding works, or are you good?
No, I was just wondering how long it had been since we'd seen increases and how long we've had to cover that.
So the 315,
The way the Department of Boating and Waterways works is if you exceed the allocation for 2 years in a row, they would normally increase the amount that they give us if the federal government increases the money to them, which they have not done. And that's why I say if we exceed that amount, the money comes out of 2201, which is then general fund. On the reverse side, if we don't expend the 315, they have the option of reducing our allocation, which luckily they have not done, and that's why the 315 has stayed status quo.
Okay, so do we typically expend it all?
Pardon me?
Do we usually spend it all down?
Prior to COVID, we always overexpended, back when we had 500 and 600 900-hour deputies.
Okay.
Since COVID, that has kind of dropped down. That and our 900-hour deputies has reduced also. We don't have as many. Like Luke said, I think last year we only had one. So we wouldn't exceed our amount because that's, you know, salaries is normally where the money goes.
Okay, but it could be a goal to get to that level again, and then we can advocate.
Definitely a goal.
Okay, we'll work together on that.
And with the increase in salaries, you're going to get there quicker because $315,000 doesn't pay for a whole lot, you know, when you're adding salaries and benefits. So,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Supervisor Owen?
Yeah, I know I'd spoke with you, Mr. Bingham, in the past about possibly the resource officers offering some law enforcement, basic law enforcement classes in the schools for recruitment. And that sounds like something that you're still possibly interested in doing, and that could maybe be done by a 900-hour officer in that area. Is that something that is still on the agenda, or that you might be interested in or looking into, to be able to boost the kids that are going to school here and graduating here, kind of some homegrown officers to bring in for recruitment?
Yes. Again, that would be incumbent upon the schools to want to have that program within their schools, but I'd be happy to do that. Again, it'd be finding the right fit too. I have to get the right deputy who has that mentoring mindset to want to do that, which I think I have several of those within the agency that would be willing to do that. So I'm open to that. I think one of the other things is the intern program that has been talked about, but that the board has been doing, is having that within my agency, both for, you know, not only sworn positions, but also professional staff positions like evidence or clerical, having that internship program for somebody who's going to college that's looking at a criminal justice degree or an evidence-based type degree, having that within the department. And I'm looking at those things certainly, but, you know, have to focus on serving the community and the staffing that I have currently before those become a potential reality.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And would you want the schools to contact you to look into that, or is that something you would bring forward to the schools?
I have no problem bringing it forward to the schools, but I'm not knowing how the school works and the laws and the requirements that they have as far as accreditation and what they can teach within their schools or have within their schools. That would definitely be something that they would have to weigh in on and
That you guys
have
would
that
work hand in
mindset.
hand
We'd have to work in hand in hand to work that out.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. All right, no other questions?
You want me to move on to the other budgets? You're good with
Yes,
those?
yes.
Okay. So our special funded budgets, these are mainly, we consider them to be trust funds, even though they're called special funded budgets. 2206 is our rural sheriffs. You guys have already spoke to that, but if there's additional questions, I'm sure the sheriff would be happy to answer those for you. 2207 is our civil account. 2208 is blood alcohol. 2210 is our training fund for the correctional staff. 2212 is automated warrants. 2213 is DNA. And if you have questions as to where the revenue comes from, just let me know.
I do have a brief question for the DNA. There's quite a lot of money in there. I just want to make sure we're up to date with all of our past like rape kits. There was a backup at one point. I know that I thought we were caught up, and I just wanted to make sure, since there's quite a bit in there, everything's up to date.
Do you want to speak to that?
Yes.
Perfect.
Simple answer. And just a little bit on the DNA fund is sometimes that looks like a lot of money sitting in there, but it is very specific on what it can and cannot be used for. So sometimes not having those cases or having the requirements for DNA, that money just kind of builds upon itself because of that. It's very specific on what it can and cannot be used for.
2204 is asset forfeiture. 2215 is our inmate account. 2216 and 17, that's our pool car and replacement, pool car and pursuit vehicle replacement fund. We will be looking this year, since the price of vehicles has gone up drastically over the last few years, we may need to increase our allocation in those two accounts. That money does come out of the coroner budget and the jail budget, and it is general fund money that goes into those trust funds. We use those, of course, to replace our vehicles as needed. 2218 is search and rescue. 2220 is the training fund for our peace officers. So if you have questions on any of those, none of those are general fund budgets, with the exception of the two vehicle replacement funds that I spoke about.
Don't see any questions? Oh, we have one now.
Yeah, just a brief question. Which one was the one we're amending when we go through the approval process again?
2301, the jail budget.
Okay.
Or the fence.
Thank you.
The two budgets we're not running right now, one of them is our JAG budget, and that's because we don't have a JAG grant currently. The other is a high-tech, and that was grant money also, which that funding has dried up. So neither one of those two budgets, they both show a zero balance. And then 1785, Casey, are you guys addressing that? Okay. So that's everything, unless you guys have questions.
All right. No, I don't see any, so I'll open it up to the public.
Lars Ewing, Public Services Director. I just thought it would be helpful to talk about some of the capital projects. I won't go into much detail, but I'll touch on the armory. That's the elephant in the room, certainly, from a funding perspective. As Sheriff Bingham indicated, it is progressing. Kudos to the contractor and the construction management team and the Public Services Capital Project Management team. They're doing an outstanding job, I would suggest. And I would encourage your board, if you haven't seen it lately, coordinate with Sheriff Bingham on that. We are on about 17-18% complete, depending upon if you're looking at cost or time. We are ahead of schedule slightly. Your board may recall that you delegated change order authority to me, under the caveat that I come back quarterly to update that. We are at the quarterly point now, so July 8th, I'll be having an agenda item to summarize that. There are a couple of change orders still within that, nothing significant from a dollar perspective. We are at about 6% of the current cost that the project has expended. We have about 6% worth of that on change orders. We're well within our contingency amount, so the project is progressing very well. A couple of things to note on that. The project does not include FF&E furnishings, fixtures, and equipment. That is in the works. You'll see a contract here soon toward that end, as well as solar. Solar was not included in the contract bid for a couple of reasons. One, in the interest of time, it was not quite complete, and second, in the interest of cost, making sure that we knew what bids would come in and would we include it. We are including it just in the, I'll call it the back area. It won't be funding 100% of the electrical there, but given new advancements, it's a very energy efficient building, so that's not it's not going to be as big of a solar project as you might have expected. So I think that's really what I wanted to highlight on that project. Happy to answer any other questions, and a few others that really nothing, to me, nothing that I would need to bring up here on any of the other projects, but happy to answer any capital project questions. But I'm sure Sheriff Bingham can answer them as well as far as the status of those projects. So thank you.
All right.
Great.
Don't see anything. All right.
Elizabeth Larson, Lake County News. Okay, so 3 question areas. The first one is federal funding. Because of the changes at the federal level, is there any federal funding streams that maybe are in danger for your department? So that's the first question. Second question on cannabis. There's been some concern, at least in some parts of the country, that of the regrowth of the black market. I'm curious, you don't have a huge cannabis budget, so I'm just curious if that is proving to be a reality in Lake County. And the last one is cold cases. Over the last several years, there's been a lot of success, both with your agency and other agencies around the region, with cold cases, especially with the advances in technology. So I'm curious if you keep I didn't really see it it didn't look like it was in your DNA budget, but I'm curious if you actually keep a little money aside just in case, and if you have any cold cases that you're actively trying to run through new DNA technology.
Try to remember all those.
Federal funding streams.
Federal funding streams. Currently, right now, there is potential talk about Homeland Security grant funding that we get and EMPG being affected by some of the, quite frankly, the back and forth between the state of California and the federal government. As of right now, we have not seen that. It's just talk and consideration. We have not seen a reduction in any one of those grants or any notice that any one of those are going to be pulled or reduced at this time. That could very well change tomorrow. I don't know. But as of right now, we don't see a change in that. As far as cannabis is concerned, yeah, we've seen a re-emergence of the black market. It's nowhere what it was 10 years ago, but there is a bit of a resurgence in the black market area when it comes to cannabis. Quite frankly, and nothing's really changed in that realm of things. You can sell marijuana in the state of California for a certain price because it is recreationally legal, and you can take that same product and move it 2 or 3 states over where it's a little more restrictive, and you can sell it for double what you're getting in California. So those that are the bad actors are certainly knowledgeable about that and kind of work that angle a little bit, both on growing legally and getting it out of the state to make that little extra profit. So we do see a little bit of that with some of our licensed growers, not hugely. It's certainly not the majority of them, but there are a few bad actors there. And then we do still see a pretty decent illegal market and growing for that. So, and then the last one is cold cases. Yes, I am not aware, and I don't want to speak to that. I'm sure there are cold cases that are being investigated by my investigations unit, but a lot of those I would not want to speak to in a public forum at this point because of the investigative nature of those. But we do consider those, and we do hold money aside for those. And then we do have, like I said, the DNA fund that is available for that if it needs that type of research and or work with. As Elizabeth brought up, non-governmental agencies that do that genealogy research for DNA, we do consider those, and we have, I believe we work with those once or twice in the past on some of our investigations to help us with that.
Right. Any other questions on Zoom, maybe? All right, I'll bring it back to the board. Did you have some? Yeah.
No, I'm so sorry.
Just making sure.
If there's no further Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve budget units 1785, 2201, 2202, 2203, 2204, 2205, 2206, 2207, 2208, 2210, 2212, 2213, 2214, 2215, 2216, 2217, 2218, 2220, 2301 with the, noting the amendment for the 100, I don't know, was the exact amount 100,000?
114, Casey, that's the
So increasing,
114.
yes, capital asset 6160, 101,114, and increasing the revenue of 5402 by the same amount.
Okay, make that motion, and, what's that?
Oh, do we need to do the amendment for 2202 for the fence?
That was dispatch.
That
We
was the one.
need an amendment on the dispatch one, too?
That was the jail.
That was it? That was both of them.
Oh, okay.
So amended on those two, and then I believe the last one is 2704.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Any, yes, what is that?
Included 1785. Did you want that one approved at this time?
Yeah, 1785 will be presented with admin budgets.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be doing that probably, yeah. But we're going to take a break first,
Do
so.
we need to redo that? Because we just approved 1785 without presentation.
Yeah, it was in the motion and the second, so does that need to be
Yeah, what do we do?
amended, Lloyd, or?
Is 1785, will that be also presented at a later point in time?
Yes.
Yeah.
So your board may rescind a prior motion, that's one option for your board, and then approve it excluding 1785, because it will be presented at a later point in time. So that is one option for your board. So the first step would be motion to rescind
Okay.
the most recent action,
Can I just rescind it just for that piece, or?
because it
Or
was taken as
read
a
the whole
whole and
thing.
have to
Yeah.
be rescinded as a whole, and then a new motion would be presented afterwards.
So moved.
Motion to
Second.
rescind, and I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right.
So I'll restate the motion. Going through, recommend approval of budget units 2201, 2202 as amended, as stated earlier, 2203, 2204, 2205, 2206, 2207, 2208, 2210, 2212, 2213, 2214, 2215, 2216, 2217, 2218, 2220, 2301 with the amendment as stated earlier, and then 2704.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, there you have it.
Thank you.
All right, we will take a break and come back in 10 minutes.
Sorry, I messed that one up.
No, you didn't.
It's a long
right, welcome back from our break. We'll go ahead and move forward onto our next budget presentation with our assessor recorder, Rich Ford.
So we'll go kind of fast. As you can see, the budgets are fairly flat. We're going to make a few introductions. We have Laura Silva. She's our senior accounting tech. And as you guys know, as from different email communications with me, is we are training people. And part of my training in my department is also what I call, you called it the show, I call it time in the sun. So my people more and more are going to be before you in time with you and getting used to that and what that looks like. So we have Laura Silva, we have Landai Janakis. She is my chief, and you've seen her in appeals, and you'll be seeing more of her. And so those are just people that I'm introducing at this point. Laura did do a lot of the preparation of this. I will speak to it. And every year she is doing more and more of that, which is what you'll be seeing more of her. When it comes to the assessor, as you guys know, we got 5 budget units. 2 of them are general fund, 3 of them are non-general fund. And we'll just go kind of quickly, and I'm just going to hit the highlights. So you guys know from the assessor, we are required to assess properties within the jurisdiction, discovery rights within all properties in that jurisdiction, which is this county of Lake. And so you can see by our budget objectives, we want to, and we've been talking about this for a while, get the use codes reduced. We have approximately the way they're set up now. When I first took office, they're set up with about 1,600 different combinations. We want to get them down to about 30. As we've explained, the system is, megabyte system is a database, and like any database, it's just asking questions. So if every time you do something, you're having it ask 1,600 questions, the system's going to be much slower, not as efficient. If you force it down to only 30, 35 questions, it's going to be much faster, much more efficient. And that's where we really want to go to. Continual training, of course, but you guys will notice, and this is straight from the budget book, we have a public liability number that's a little bit larger than we have had in the past. We anticipate that just being setting up a reserve. To be honest, can't go much into that. We've done some investigation that it does seem to be accurate, but that was provided to us from risk. And so that, honestly, risk can talk to that.
That's a huge, huge jump.
Yeah, I think I lost my lunch when I saw the number originally. It was a little large, a lot larger than normal, but it's related to something in the past. We didn't even honestly know what it was. So
Over the past couple of years, it's went from 5,000 to 327,000.
yeah, so whatever risk is seen with related to that past situation, I guess they're seeing increased risk, or they see for some increased risk, but it's kind of risk oriented, so we're not going to speak to it, I guess would be the answer. That's a number provided to us. We've double checked it that was accurate, because of course when we first saw it, yeah, as you explained, very big difference. So first indication was we kind of were like, whoa, and then made a couple phone calls. It is accurate. It is what they provided. It is in the budget book, so that's what we have to go with. And so we've done what we could accordingly.
No words?
What was that?
There's no words. I mean, it's just,
Yeah,
There's
that's about where we were for about a couple weeks until we got some resolution on stuff. So, yeah. But certain, as you guys know, certain numbers are provided to us. We don't control them for the most part. Of course, you control them in how you operate, but that's
yeah,
stuff from the
there's
past.
just a big why.
Yep, that would be the answer. The other one on 1123 to probably call out is professional services. Goes up by about 25,000. Just you guys have noted on different things we're working on, different projects in the past, as we called out the use codes. Going from the 1,600 and the combination change, we are not positive we won't need to get the vendor involved and have to pay some additional fees for that. So that's pretty much what that's calling out. We don't anticipate that, but the honest answer is you got to make sure you got some money for that. So that's 1123. 2707, so I'm just going to keep going unless you guys raise your hand. 2707, you guys know it's the recorders. We're responsible for recording series of many documents and making them public. basically indexing, verifying. You can see on our projects that we've had in the past to get e-recording done, that goes live Tuesday, the 1st. That's a 6-year project. Shouldn't be a 6-year project in private industry. As a controller, that probably would have taken me max a year and a half, but a series of a lot of different variations. But we go live, and we are very happy about that. It's been a lot of work on our side. Then our second budget objective, so that will be honestly done before we actually hit the fiscal year, right at the fiscal year on the 1st. Then credit card processing, like we've talked about, we feel the way we look at it is all our customers need to be felt, basically treated universally and the same. And so e-recording benefits title companies, which is about 40-ish% of our business. And then you have the public. The public needs to have the same access to pay electronically as the title companies do. So e-recording through ACHs in the process has that ability starting the 1st. We are working at the same time, at the same kind of pace to get electronic payment for the public in, or essentially paying by credit card, debit cards. We anticipate that somewhere in the fall. The reason there's a difference is because I don't care how good your implementation on a project is, you can only process so much volume to see if you got issues. So we've always felt, and I've gone through a lot of implementations, you always feel that when you do the implementation, you allow a certain amount live volume to go through and get enough volume through to see if you really have any issues. If you don't have any issues, then you can proceed on to the next project. So we anticipate about 2 months of that extra volume going through. We will then, ideally, if everything goes on track, we will somewhere in the fall be doing credit cards and debit cards at our counter. And so that's our 2 projects. And so pretty much if everything goes well by fall, we will have them done and be moving on to further projects. In continuing training retention, as you can see also by our budget, it's relatively flat. The only thing that is probably gone up some is the recording fees. And the recording fees, I have personally put together all the numbers in a presentation for the Recording Association. And there is a bill, AB 1430, that has already passed the Assembly to fix that. Recording fees have not changed, and I think it's, I want to say off the top of my head, I think it's now 14 years. And there was no CPI attached to it. So it's the way the recording fees lock in is they set up a range, but then there's a cap, there's a max with no CPI attached to it. And so we have put a presentation together. The Recording Association has accepted it and moved on and added different things to it. And so that is going forward. That's why the revenue is a little bit higher. And so that's the general fund. Do you guys have any questions? If not, I'm going to keep going. Sure.
You had yours.
Oh, I do. It's on, let me see, is that general fund? No, I think it'll be in the next section. It'd be
Sure.
the modernization.
Modernization.
Yes,
No problem.
so I'll wait till then.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, just a quick statement. I know that we've talked yesterday about some additional things, and I know that you also have a decent vacancy. 12 out of 16 is what I got as of Monday. But I also see that on average, your actuals for your expenses, it's never been over. The last one of the actuals is 1.3 million. I don't know what your specific vacancy was at that time, but your recommended this year is 2 million. And even if there was a 20% increase of your budget, it would still be only 1.5 million. That is like a huge increase from the actuals versus the recommended. I feel there's a lot of fluff in here that if we're looking for money, there seems to be some left over, and this is general fund. So I'm not trying to take away, but I think if there's ways to tighten that a little bit in looking for some of the funds that we're looking for, I think that would be an opportunity.
So quick question on that, because I'm not following your, I think you're looking at the bottom line number. Now remember, you have the 327,000 in that number of the 2 million, right?
Yeah.
So, and some of the additional numbers that came in to help us with the 327 is what you're going to be seeing. So ideally,
But even that increase occurred last year in 24-25. It was 1.8. So I mean, it's just, I see some wiggle room there. I'm not saying take away anything. I'm just saying as we
Yeah.
look around.
I can look at that, and we do it based on per salary as we do our schedule. And so that's an accurate number. I can take a look at it and double check for accuracy, but that's an accurate number. As far as our vacancies, you guys have heard me say in the past, we have struggled with the appraiser class. They were Y-rated in the last go-round. And I've done numerous recruitments. The last recruitment got 1. I'm not a big proponent, and I'm just say publicly, I'm not a big proponent of kind of the incentive scenario because I do have staff that has worked with me a long, long time, and it's not always fair to go, hey, new person gets X for coming in, and my guys that have worked for less, and I think it's a morale issue. But I'm very glad that you guys did what you did the other day with the MOUs. I'm hoping that helps with our recruitment because honestly, the way we've survived is we got some people that now finally have enough experience. And our office takes approximately 5 years to get up to true speed.
Okay.
And we have certifications from the state and all the things that we've talked about in the past. And so not filling that pipe that we've not been able to do for the last number of years is really kind of putting us in a kind of tricky spot. Hopefully we can get some people on. We have traditionally kind of funneled people from the recorder side to the assessor side. That's not a real successful path long term. We've essentially rebuilt the front end like about 3 or 4 times during my time frame. That's not really what you want to be doing. That doesn't build bench strength and build a lot of experience. But that's what we've had to do. So we're hoping with the MOU change that's going to change our vacancy, get us back filling that pipe, getting to the point that people are filled in. We do have some retirements because some of that vacancy is not recognizing one of the retirements that's going to happen at the end of the month, and a possible second retirement. Some of the people that you're seeing are kind of in that succession planning stage, and so we're doing what we can to keep operating. We're operating fairly well considering our staffing, but I'll chime into kind of what the sheriff said. Not ideal, not the way to operate, and not the way to kind of fill the pipe long term. We've been able to kind of band-aid and get us where we need to be. A lot of that is based off our training and how we train every morning and how we train in a lot of different ways. But the real answer is you want to be sustainable, durable. It's the way I always look at it operationally. And so we are operating. I would not call us sustainable, durable, not at this point. But we continue to do that, and we will continue to fight the battle and do it operationally as best we could. We had a fantastic close yesterday for tax roll. We're still doing certain tests that we always do, but it was probably one of the best ones we've had so far during my time. And I know there's always questions about like Prop 8s and permits there, because I'm seeing Jessica's, it's already coming up. So we've taken permits for about 4,500. Right now at this point, we've got about 2,700 at that point, and of that which you only have about 1,200 width structures. So that's a difference. As far as actually, I flipped the number. That's the Prop 8 number. And just to give for clarification, for anybody new, when I first started, that was 10,800. And so as we've talked about in the past, there is a permanent Prop 8 kind of number to be at, and that's getting very, very close to what I feel the permanent Prop 8 number is. What I mean by that is sometimes people will buy properties, let's say from out of town, and maybe this is a historical before my time. Somehow they got valued in a way that was too high and is historically too high, and they have to go on a Prop 8. We evaluate Prop 8s every year, or should be. If we evaluate them and can never get them back up to market, they will stay on Prop 8 permanently, basically. So that's that description. As far as permits, we had 4,500. We were at 2,875. So you can see big movements on both those numbers. We will continue to work on those. But as you called out, Bruno, we have staffing. Our staff is very efficient for the numbers we have, and I have a fantastic staff. And they will continue to get training and try and get better and better and better. And I think per capita across the state, if you divide the amount of volume that we have for the people we have one of the highest volume per capita. So the expectation of my staff is highest across the state.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and we've still been able to succeed based off of that load. So that's the general answer on that. I will look into the number, Bruno, if you want. But if you want, we can go through the rest of the non-general funds.
Continue.
Well, can I
Oh,
just-
go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for already answering my questions. After all these years, I guess you know what to expect. But I just want to say thank you to you and your team, because this is how we raise revenue in our county. And the same thing that I said to the tax collector's office yesterday, thank you. Because we're in a solid place right now financially because of this work that you've been doing to clear out the pipeline, to get caught up on all of these assessments. So
Yeah.
it shows. It shows. You see our trajectories moving up because of the work that you and your team are doing. So thank you to everyone that's working with you and under you, Rich. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Just to speak to that a second, I know, and you guys all know my financial background, control and all that stuff, is I recall when I first came to the county, all that I heard felt like for years was how bad the budgets were and how tight everything was. And when I took office, and the tax roll was about 6.5 billion, give or take, and we just finished 10 billion now. Most of that operational. And what I mean by that is, it's not the housing prices go up. Houses basically sell about once every 10 years. So the amount of housing going up that's going to affect your tax roll is only about 1/10. So you're not going to see, I don't care if houses go crazy, the tax roll is only going to move up by about 10% every year based on the house prices. All of that is stuff that should have been done a long time ago. And you can see now, and it started happening once the tax roll started kind of going back the way it should have gone. I didn't hear that anymore. So that's kind of good indication. It wasn't just in the county, it was the cities, the schools, so any place I was around, I felt like I heard the same comment. And taxes provides the steadiness for our economy across all those organizations. That is some of the biggest employers across organizations and across the economy. So thank you for the comment. That's leads me into talking about finance, which I like to talk about. So anyway, any questions, or should I keep going?
Keep going. Go ahead.
Okay. So as you guys know, these are non-general fund. And so basically these are special revenue funds, kind of similar to what you've heard before, is they are for a special purpose. The way I describe them is you've called out that you want to build a bridge with that special fund. It can only be built, a bridge can only be built. You can't do anything else with it. You can't move it to general fund. We also, even though we run them, can only spend them on specific things. So you can see kind of like micrographics, this is basically trying to make sure that kind of indexing, verifying, kind of that kind of process is being done, and any different things we need to buy for that, we get done. And that is, as you can see, is relatively flat. And then I'll just move on to modernization. Modernization out of the three is a little bit more broad. The intention is to modernize the recorder's office. Now, and let me clarify, these three are only for the recorder side. So as much as sometimes we would love to spend it on the assessor side and buy more technology or more stuff, we cannot. It has to be on the recorder side. So you can see on that, we have a couple things called out, and both of them are related pretty much to the same. You got 2390 and you've got 2830. Both are related to projects. In this case, we had money left over for doing the Tyler recording system project that we did. We implemented that this summer, went live with that, and we're doing e-recording with that, and we're doing the credit card. So we backed off on the number, especially on 2830, substantially because Tyler is now live. We don't anticipate a whole lot more money outlay on that for anything, but we do anticipate, different things for e-recording and different things for credit cards. we did save some money because our project, if you guys have ever done implementations, they usually assign you a number of hours for the project from the project manager side. Our project was so efficient that we were left with hours, and we've used some of the hours to do the processing on the e-recording because it's through the same vendor. And so that helped us on that. So we might not be spending that money, but we have to put it out there and make sure if something comes up that we're not aware of. But we go live, and ideally, knock on wood, if there's any real wood around here, that it goes live and everything's good on Tuesday, and then we'll be working on the extra pieces for the credit card.
I have a question,
Sure.
backing up just slightly.
Sure.
To the, find it, micrographics.
Sure.
So we have some unreserved fundings, and it looks like quite a bit in there, and I know it's designated and can't really be used for anything other. What are you foreseeing that you're gonna need? 'Cause it's pretty substantial. There's like around
That is,
$867,000. What do you see that?
that is the hardest one to spend because that was actually designated at a time when micrographics and actually taking things to like microfiche was a huge cost. And so that's kind of where the buildup has happened in the past. That's the hardest one out of these to actually spend because of that reason, because it's really, we can only buy kind of scanners and things that have to do with indexing, verifying. So some of that buildup, so there's not a real easy way to move that or even spend it. And so that will probably stay at that level. That particular one will stay at that level for a
And
while.
I'm wondering if, because I'm one that campaigned on we're overtaxed and overregulated. And I'm wondering if this is an area that we can reduce, that if we're not needing those monies, we maybe perhaps should reduce the charge for those in that area. Is that a
It
possibility?
has been looked at across the state, and that's been looked at the same, remember I just talked about the recording fees? When we basically go back, and that's passed, because it's at the Senate at this point, when it gets through the Senate and ideally gets signed, we will be looking at that because there will be a new recording fee number based off of that bill, because it has to go through SAC at this point. We will be looking at that because it is being looked at across the state for exactly what you're describing. This was established, as well as a lot of these fees. And what it is we have a base recording fee. Our base recording fee is $10, but it's not $10 when it comes to a customer. They have, SB2, they have some other things that are in there, but this is related to a set fee that's designated for this.
Sure.
The buildup of it has happened over a very long time, and part of that is because the technology has moved away from the intention of it a long time ago.
Right.
So we will probably be looking at it at that recording fee once that passes to reduce this off. The downside is, while we will reduce the flow into the account balance will still stay because nor can the board do anything about it until we find projects to use it for.
And
There has been investigation across the state, though, to kind of figure out is there something to be
So
done?
this is controlled at the state level, so we cannot even no longer charge it. Is that what you're claiming?
No, we can, once they're established into kind of the rules, it's kind of up to each recorder to decide which ones they're going to pick. Like there's a DA fraud fee we do not charge for. And part of that is, there's been discussions with the DA in the past of, do they have the team? Can they even use that? If they can't use it, we're not charging it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking at.
And that's kind of the same thing here.
Stop charging it.
Yeah, and this is a conversation that is going on across the state. Everything you just explained, that's exactly why it's being looked at,
Thank you.
to kind of stop it. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just keep going, modernization, and then we've got vital health and statistics. As you guys know, we're not the ones who produce these certificates, but we are the holders of them after they go past the health agencies and come to us. And so this is our small little funds that we keep to make sure we can maintain that. One big win for us I want to make sure we call out is we have been scanning, we're not all the way done, but we have been scanning the vitals, vital records, in-house, no additional cost. We are almost done. That's great kudos for my team doing that, which that's going to be a big benefit once that gets done, and it makes it a lot more efficient for when people come to our office. And that's it, unless anybody has any questions.
I will open it up to the public. If there's anyone from the public, and I see someone coming up.
Elizabeth Larson, Lake County News. Okay, 2 questions. First one is, do you have a ballpark idea of how much of your collection is digitized? Jeopardy question.
So let me clarify. So are you
Okay.
talking about receiving the money?
No, digital, how much of your entire, all of your records?
Like vitals and stuff, I think
Yeah,
is what
how much of those are digitized? You just said scanning. Is that, were you referring to
Yeah,
that?
so we currently scan, we go back to, I think it's 1980 on certain levels, and we've got projects after these projects are done to actually go a little bit further. We have them scanned on certain discs that we need to kind of incorporate more fully. If somebody comes in, they can actually kind of go past that. We also have, if you go in our office, we have the books that you can kind of do different things and go past it. But those are further projects to get past.
Right, okay.
So, if that helps.
Yeah, no, it does. Again, I'm one of those people, I walk into it and I see all those great old books.
They're cool books.
And then I think, what about if there's a fire threatening this building and we could lose all those books? I mean, unfortunately, this is just the headspace I'm in now. So, second question is on the credit cards, which is great. I think that's been a long-running discussion. Have you been working with any other are other departments working along the same lines to do the same system for credit cards, or is it just you working by yourself?
So I'll speak to our process. I can't really speak to the other ones, but our process basically is we've approached, because the other agencies, treasurer, auditor, right? They luckily, in those conversations, have had pretty much your same perspective, trying to make sure that we're not creating a bunch of one-off scenarios. So a lot of the processing and kind of plan we put together through working with the treasurer and the auditor is mirroring basically, as to my understanding, mirroring basically what they're receiving from everyone else.
Okay.
We're trying to keep it consistent. As far as if it's the exact same vendor, I'm not privy to that, to be honest.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Any other public comment? All right, bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve budget units 1123, 2707, 2708, 2709, and 2710.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we'll give the floor back to admin, Casey.
Thank you. So I will start with Budget Unit 1011, which is for the Board of Supervisors. So that is your board's budget unit. It's responsible for establishing county priorities and operating policies, adopts ordinances, and ensures mandated functions are properly discharged. It does direct financial resources through the adoption of the annual county budget, and it is a general fund budget unit.
All right.
Next is Administrative Office 1012. So this is our budget unit, and so performs general administration and management of county government functions. Is responsible for the direct administration of more than 20 budget units.
I have something up.
Go ahead.
Okay, so on the, I actually didn't get quite organized on the page I was on, so I'll have to back up as well. But on the admin office, there's 17,000 in memberships, 17.5 in memberships. And unfortunately, throughout the budget, there wasn't a lot of information stating what this was for. What are the memberships? Can I ask that?
Sure, give me just a moment. So that includes NACO, RCRC, CSAC, CASE, GFOA, Amazon Prime for the countywide, and ICMA.
Okay, and then let me go back to the supervisors. Let me see, there's a clothing allowance, I believe, personal clothing allowance. There's professional services. There's a number of things down there on 2380, 2830, 3800, and other charges, which is 5210. So there's just not a lot of information on
Sure.
those.
So starting with the clothing, so we did budget for polo shirts. So if anybody from your board wants a County of Lake polo shirt, we can definitely order that. And then I believe the next one was 2380, so that is the discretionary funds. As well as the 5210 is also discretionary, so 400,000, that is for City of Clear Lake, which has been obligated by Supervisor Sabatier. I'm sorry, was there another one?
It was 3,800 for 5,000.
So that is inventory items, so that is for electronic devices, so
Okay.
computers.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, I think we're on, still on 1012.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just two things on the, starting at the county admin. I know that we have done some approvals of contracts with like the newsletter and things. Just kind of curious to 2380 if you can provide some details on the 375,000.
Sure, so yes, we have,
1012 or to,
Sorry, I'm on 1012.
okay, that's fine.
okay. Yes, we have consulting services, lobbyists, and management connections for part-time employees that are not extra help
Okay.
for scanning.
The newsletter stuff that comes out of marketing.
Let me take a look.
I'm guessing.
Is that on supervisor?
It's on the admin one.
Yes, that is in 2380 for marketing and economic development, 1892.
Okay. And then there's some transfers, some interfunds. Where's that coming from? At the bottom, we have 8080. I believe that might be cannabis, and then 8081.
So for 8080, that is geothermal royalties, which comes from budget unit 1918. And for the 8081, that is reimbursement for staff time for purchasing out of budget unit 1124. 1892 for marketing and economic development. That covers part of Ben's salary as well as Lisa's. And budget unit 2111, public defender, and budget unit 1781, special projects.
Okay. I guess I'll say here for this one, there's a lot of operating transfers, and like some of these make very good sense when I read through it, but when it's a transfer, it's kind of a blank as to where it's coming from. If it's possible in future budgets, is there a transfer page that can say on budget 1012, transfer this is coming from, like it's just, it's a spaghetti loop of money that I can't follow unless I have to ask specific questions. If there's a way, I don't know if the program can provide that, to provide a report of just the transfers, that would be a little easier and transparent to follow the money as to where it's coming from, because numbers are numbers to make things look good. I know they're coming from a specific place, but it's hard to follow even from this position with the knowledge that I have. On 1011, I don't know why it has the $400,000, especially since it's for next fiscal year. I haven't allocated anything specific. The bid has gone out, and my plan is to use the entirety of the fund for that project. And so at the very least, I would like for it to move up to 500 because that's what will be available as of July 1st. I know you said 500 was available today, yesterday. While I would love an extra 100, I believe as of July 1st, it's at 500,000. So if you could please change 5210 coming from the discretionary funds to be 500,000, that would be great.
So July 1st, it'll be at 600.
I don't know how that happened, but if you keep saying that, I will take it. But if you can change that to 6.
Yes, we will do that. All we need is an email confirmation from you saying that you're obligating the funds to that. So 5210 is contribution to a non-county government agency, which is why we have the 400,000 in there, but we will change that to 600 this coming year.
Perfect, thank you.
And then also on the transfers, we do have a transfer sheet that administration maintains. We make sure that there's balancing on each side, ins and outs. And so we can absolutely include that with the description of where the funds are coming from, where they're going.
That'd be great.
All right.
Okay, so moving on to Budget Unit 1014, which is the clerk to the board. So maintains official records for the Board of Supervisors, prepares board agendas and takes minutes, maintains the county ordinance code, and publishes legal notices mandated for many types of board hearings.
Do you have your pen up?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay.
Both of us.
Focusing.
Next is cannabis, so Budget Unit 1072. So this is where all of the revenue from cannabis cultivation taxes, growth site development, and environmental planning permits goes into and then is transferred out of. This is also where the discretionary fund is moved out of when it's used.
Go ahead, Supervisor Sabatier.
So just a brief question. I guess it's more on policy than anything else related to cannabis taxes. I thought in the past years of the budget, there was a description of every payment that was made, especially from our discretionary, because we seem to follow, even though I personally disagree with that, the procurement process, so that if it's less than 100,000, we can just have admin do a check for us and hand it out without a public formality of saying that this is what we're doing. And I thought we were doing an annual report to show this is what's happening. I don't see that anywhere, and I thought I saw that in prior ones, and I think at least having an annual report is the right way. I also believe that there was a process, in my opinion, that is not written in our policy, where there was an exchange of supervisors partway through a fiscal year, and that it was limited to $50,000 for that, which I think is right. But I would like to see us revise that policy, because I think that would be a good thing to place in the policy for future issues, to say that whatever money, because I know there's a discussion for changing of that discretionary fund, but whatever discretionary fund is available, that it should be split for the 6 months that a supervisor is here, and potentially the 6 months to a different supervisor if there's a change of supervisors. I thought it was a good idea, but I don't see it in the policy, and I think we should probably revise the policy in the near future.
Supervisor Pyska.
Yeah, I think we need to bring it back soon and have a discussion on the policy and really look at the levels that are going for discretionary, because I think it's out of balance. I said a lot about that yesterday. I don't think that it was ever the intention to have such a high amount come to the board. I think there's a lot of services that we can provide, build stability in some other programs. So I would really like to see this come back before final.
Does this include the 30, 30, 30, 10?
Correct, it
Yes.
does.
And so, I mean, that's one of the others I would like to see, because I know, again, I mentioned yesterday the CAN grants that are pledged but not used. There's a couple of, descriptions that could be used for other implementations. So I mean, I don't know if this includes the discussion about discretionary. I know discretionary seems to be a big amount when it comes to the amount of taxes we get now. But I just want to be able to have an identifying number in my head to see how much is even being used for that 30, 30, 10 as opposed to, our discretionary. Because, I mean, if that's not being used, we can appropriate some of the things we're using for discretionary over there. That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
I have something on that as well.
I don't know who was first.
I don't know, but.
Go ahead, let him.
But yeah, if we're gonna discuss it, I think we ought to be discussing the whole thing.
Whole policy.
Yep.
Everything that's involved in cannabis funds.
Yeah, and also, as I understand it, the 50% reduction is going to be expiring at the end of the year, is that correct? So we're going to be back to
Well,
the full fee as I understand it,
On the taxes.
on the taxes for that.
We,
So that will basically, just as a rule of thumb, double the income.
I'm more than happy to bring back a policy revision to your board in presentation.
Okay, any other questions on that? All right, let's go on to,
All right, so next is 1120, which is non-departmental revenue. As promised, I do have a slide for the bond. So Johanna, if you could put that up, please. So this is our general fund. This is where all of the sales tax, property tax comes into, and is the main funding source for general fund departments. So the local revenue bond process, so you're asking why it was not accounted for in the debt servicing funds, and that is because when we receive an invoice to pay on the armory, we send a copy to U.S. Bank and funds are requested. Then they wire us the funds within a few days. Funds are then deposited into 1785, which is the capital asset account or budget, and then the bill is paid directly out of there. So everything is accounted for on the county side in the capital asset fund and not in any other revenue fund. Okay.
all right,
And then would like to clarify, so part of 1120 has multiple funds, reserves. So the general fund reserves are attached, and so Fund 152, we're transferring 400,000 to 7011 for parks, and from Fund 153, we're transferring 282,000 to 1671 buildings and grounds. Is that correct? That's from yesterday. Yeah.
okay.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Next is Budget Unit 1124, and so that is central services, so processes incoming and outgoing mail. Photocopier pool is maintained through there, and the CalCard Visa program, and also assists with related purchasing.
Supervisor Sabatier.
Thank you. I just had a question about the debt service. There's no dollar amounts that will be shared today, just an explanation of where it is, and that's it.
So we just submitted our very first invoice to them, which I believe was about 1.5 million. So that will be coming in and then used to pay that invoice. We make semi-annual payments, so the next payment will be due, I believe, in May of next year, because we don't have a payment due this November.
And total in the U.S. Bank currently?
Is the full amount of the bond, because we have not taken any money out. So I do not have that exact number in front of me, but I can get that for you.
Okay. That's, in my opinion, what's important, because whether it's money in our budget or not, it's money we owe, and it's money we should talk about.
Absolutely. All right, so next is Human Resources, Budget Unit 1341. So delivers services which include workforce planning, employee recruitment, benefit administration, and employee performance management, policy development, and training and development. They also just completed the salary survey and have been working very hard with us on negotiations. Next is Budget Unit 1778. So this is for general fund capital projects, and I do have some changes which were just submitted by Public Services. So for the capital projects, they are requesting to reduce the water line for South Main Street and Soda Bay Road by $465,796. Add in to capital asset 6313, Middletown Senior Center Solar at $260,000. Sheriff Admin Roof, decrease it by $40,000. District Attorney roof increased by $120,000. Vista Point roof increased by $90,000. Law Library roof increased by $60,000. Veteran Service roof increased by $60,000. Agricultural Center roof decreased by $9,204. And Sheriff Dispatch roof decreased by $75,000.
All right, any questions on Supervisor Sabatier?
Is that a wash?
Yes.
So taking money away from a water line road project for all of those roofs, just to kind of summarize?
Correct. And then we can replenish the South Main Street and Soda Bay at final when we know what our carryover is.
All right.
So next is Budget Unit 1781, which is special projects. So fund special projects involving other departments, primarily one-time discretionary revenue. The objective for this budget for this upcoming year is to complete Lucerne Harbor dredging and docking project. Next up is Budget Unit 1785, and so that is the capital asset fund for the sheriff facilities, and so that includes the armory in there. We did already talk about that quite a bit, but if you have any questions, I can answer those.
Can I back up to 2380, which is just the one before that, and you have your professional specialized services, and it's it went up, it more than doubled. So in the last couple of years, it's at $1,329,000. And can you tell me what that's for?
Sure.
Line item 2380.
So that includes appraisals of county-owned properties, countywide energy efficiency and sustainability study, 211 implementation, National Center for Public Lands Counties, LATCF. And so that is the 30,000 of that is allocated because that was promised to be paid. And then the SLR DWR grant agreement, attorney fees, in non-reimbursable grant-related services, and APGP grant.
Is that on,
That's
so which budget unit are you on?
Oh, 1781.
Okay. Yes. I just, I'm glad we went back to it because I just wanted to say that they're at the piers on 6311. Talked about the Lucerne Harbor. They're looking at the piers now is where we're at with it. The other portion's been completed, so I just wanted to mention that. Okay. I don't see anything else. Good.
So next is 1794 CDBG program income for special projects. And so this is loan payments and payoffs that are accumulated in this fund must be used pursuant to the terms of the program income reuse agreement approved by the Board of Supervisors. So if it exceeds $35,000 in any fiscal year, it must be used for CDBG projects in Budget Unit 1796 or 1891. Less than $35,000 can be retained by general fund. Next is Budget Unit 1796 for the CDBG capital projects. So this budget unit is currently at zero for this upcoming year. It provides funding for capital projects financed by the Community Development Block Grant or CDBG program. There are not currently any anticipated. Budget Unit 1891 is the CDBG Program Income Business RLF Relief Budget. And so that receives grant funding from state CDBG program through the Department of Housing and Community Development. It currently has the Micro Enterprise Technical Assistance Services Program.
That's technical assistance and loans?
Let me double check.
I'm assuming it's the contract we have with Mr. Lucas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. Technical assistance and loans. So next is Budget Unit 1892, Marketing and Economic Development. So this budget unit works collaboratively to promote the marketing of Lake County as a tourist destination, increase local tourism and commerce, and foster local economic development.
And item 2830?
2830 is One Team, One Dream at $50,000.
So again, this year I oppose this. We have, in our program with CDBG, we have technical assistance and we have the low-income loan program for businesses. But last year we gave $50,000, which I did not support, and all of it was given away as prizes. And I do not think that we should be giving taxpayer money away as prizes that are, especially because there's no oversight and no reporting to those businesses. I do think it's a great program, but I think it should be privately funded and not funded by the taxpayers.
And I'm going to concur with that as well. I've seen the One Team, One Dream, and I know that there's been some, cool programs that have gained forward, but I did not realize until now that it was coming from public funding. And I agree with that, actually.
Where is the money coming from for that? Is it just out of the general fund, or is it some other source?
Yeah, it's
It's
Yes, it
general
says
fund.
general fund.
general fund, but this is our economic development budget, which means this is the environment that we're building for all of our businesses to thrive. And we give $50,000 to a handful of businesses to spend their money on whatever they want. We're doing a disservice to the taxpayers and to the environment we're trying to
No,
build.
I don't think it should be I don't think it should be publicly funded either.
Well, they're not just gifts, so they're for, like when a business has an expense they need to enhance their business, there's a competition that comes to it. So it's not necessarily like just prizes. They have to go through a process to ensure that they are going to actually spend it on something that's going to help their business. But I understand your concern. It's not just like a gift to somebody that they just spend. However, they spend it on a business expense.
Even though this is a general fund department and is funded by taxes, it's funded by transient occupancy tax.
Well, there also is, as I was getting to earlier, when it came to the cannabis percentages, there's economic development. And I don't know if that's, that's why I also wanted to see the numbers on that, because then that could be something else we look at.
Yeah, well, it coming out of general fund is what I'm having the issues with.
All right, Supervisor Sabatier?
I'm not too worried about it. I believe that this year there is no One Team, One Dream. I think they're taking a hiatus, if I'm correct. At least that's what I was alerted to, so I'm not too worried if that's the case. But I do want to have a deeper dive between our housing and our economic development as to where we are. We've had plans in the works. They have not been fully finalized and cooked. And I think that we need to hit the ground running with those, because I've spoken with CAO Parker. What is the exchange? Because I don't feel we're doing enough in trying to support our local businesses. And economic development, in my opinion, is not bringing in outside corporations, because our local, that is a part of it, but our local mom and pop shops, our local economy is the backbone of our economy, and we have to figure out how to support them. And right now there's a lot of struggle out there. So I don't know what the answer is, but I want to see what exchange we do for that rather than just dropping it off, because I think we need to find ways to make sure the platform allows for the success, because there's a lot of struggle out there. I did want to mention one more thing. I think it's coming out of the marketing, but just wanted to make sure. I know that we do have a 3-year contract with PEG TV for $10,000. We obviously, you're well aware that it was increased to $17,000 as a whole, and that was with the last edition of the Scotts Valley Community Town Hall, and that was only since March or February, I think, that started. if I remember correctly. And so does it anticipate that level of expenditure within that budget?
Give me just a second.
Or maybe there's no need to answer right now, but in the final budget, if that can be, let me know that if it's there or not.
So it is actually budgeted in 1781, and let me find the amount.
Oh,
There it is.
my apologies.
So we have 30,000 budgeted for the 1% fee, and then 15,000 for the operations.
No, that's the payment for the pass-through and the payment for the agreement that we have within the, not the JPA, but the agreement that we have between the groups. For the contract itself, we have a contract for covering the max. And I know at one point it came out of marketing. Again, it's a small amount. I just wanted to at least bring it to your attention. If you can give me those details either at a later time or at final budget to let me know what that looks like, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Because we do expect that it would cost about 17,000
At minimum, if it's full year round with all seven, yes.
for all 7 max.
I
And
would
then,
say closer to the 20.
yeah. And then Chair, I just wanted to clarify, were you suggesting further discussion about the one dream with the cannabis funds? Is that what you were saying?
Well, yeah, that's also why when we were talking earlier about the cannabis, so was it 1072, the 30%, 30%, 30%, 10%, looking at how that's, maybe a breakdown. So things like that can come from those funds rather than general fund, like you're saying, and if it even comes forward. There's also one of the other things I was thinking of. I know that this predates back to 2018 when the TID was started. I know that there used to be a relationship with the county and Chamber of Commerce, and then that ended during that specific situation. I don't know how it worked back then. I think that predates a lot of us. How the Chamber of Commerce used to receive a specific amount from the county. I don't know if it was once or twice a year, but I know that the chamber is struggling, and so I don't know if they need to partner with TID or TID replace them. I just know that if there's a way for us, whether it be in that 30-30, 30-10, or something else, we would be able to help them as they, like Bruno had said, help the businesses thrive as well. I know they use membership fees. I know they do all that as well, but just wanted to discuss that further. I don't know if here's the place or if that's the place later, or go ahead.
I do want to add to, do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
First of all, on the one team, one dream, I think it ought to be taken out of the general and have a further discussion when we discuss the cannabis.
Okay.
That's my thought right now on that. And then with the chamber, yes, between 2003 and 2014, extending to 2019 on the last MOU with the county was paying between, it started out around 30,000 a year, and it went all the way up to 100 even, I believe, one year. And it was more, usually ran about 50,000, but the contracts on those were to provide for them running the visitor center,
Yes.
which is the memberships now, since they lost money in the after 2019, when the TOT transferred to the TID, the chamber has not, they can't sustain running that visitor center. So what's at risk is that visitor center may close, because the memberships aren't paying for that. And they really need, another 50,000 a year probably if they were going to run that visitor center. So I think that needs to be a discussion at some point. I don't know if today's the day either, but
Right.
it is a problem.
I think
Yeah,
you
I
were
think I was.
first.
Yeah, and like I said, the one team, one dream, it's not that it's not a good program. I have trouble with the general fund it coming out there. Now, I would not have trouble at all putting that 50,000 into the visitor center, because that is countywide. I have trouble with the monies going directly to individuals to start a business, because there's so many people struggling to get a business going, and they're finding ways. And to pick out one or two and give them $50,000, it doesn't seem balanced for those that have to come up with the money themselves. So if the visitor centers come up with a way to help people, I don't have a problem with that, and I don't have a problem with helping the visitor center, or if it's coming out of a different funding source. But absolutely, for the general fund, I do have an issue. And I do believe what you had just mentioned, Mr. Brad, was something I'd wanted to bring up, that we need to support our visitor center, too, financially.
Yeah, it sounds like we're all in agreement. But it also sounds like from CAO Parker that maybe we should bring this back for another discussion another day.
I think so.
We did have a conversation about supporting the chamber. I would much rather support them in a partnership running the visitor center than actually joining the chamber. I think there's some conflicts there. They are an advocacy group, and they are a pay-to-play group. So I do see a little conflict of joining them as a member, but if we could partner with them to run the visitor center, I'd be comfortable with that. But we can kick this to another day.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
You was Supervisor, then Vice Chair. Go ahead.
I was going to say actually the opposite. I'm more in terms of we should be in tune with what the chamber is doing and understand what the conversations are. And I think being a member makes us have a front seat as to what those conversations are. I don't see where the conflict would be. But us giving money to right now, the reason the money has disappeared is multiple reasons. The CTA program, the magazine, and things like that has moved around. But a group to support businesses that can't run their own business and needs us to support them financially to run their business seems a little bit on the awkward side, personally. And so I think I'm okay for a larger discussion, but I think becoming a member is actually a good thing, and I think it gives us a little bit more awareness of what the conversation is and what's happening and where it is that we can support our local businesses as well with what we do.
Vice Chair?
Well, I was going to mention, because that came up, that membership is in the budget, so if we want to rediscuss that, we probably should be aware of that when we go through final approval.
All right. Did you have anything else to add?
No, I'm sorry.
If there's not anything else, I think it looks like we have a consensus on the one team, one dream thing. And the further discussion when it comes to the chamber, I'm not sure, is the memberships in that? Let me get back here.
Well, I believe I saw it in the budget, proposed budget.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Is this the $800?
No, it was 1,500.
15?
Under memberships.
Oh, I see it. There we go. Okay. I mean, are we going to leave that in there?
Well, I was just suggesting if we're going to have a larger discussion about the chamber, maybe we ought not to
Table it.
have it in there. It should be
All right.
tabled.
We'll just leave it for now, and then after we have the discussion, we'll make any adjustments we need to for the fund.
Okay. All right. If there's no further discussion on that, continue.
So next one is Budget Unit 1918, Geothermal Resource Royalties. So this budget unit is used to account for geothermal resource royalty payments received from federal and state governments. There are some restrictions due to AB 1905. Funding from this budget unit consists of projects to mitigate the impact of geothermal development, maintenance, planning, and resource management, and various other special projects.
So this is basically fully allocated right now, or?
It is, yes.
No reserves.
No, there's no reserves, so everything is budgeted.
Yeah, because I know that we've been talking about, lessening the discretionary funds. I know one of the expenses that I help with is over in the Clear Lake Oaks Keys, that area. There's a prolific, what is it, that weed, aquatic weed. I know that's part of the portion that is used for that. So I mean, if we have that discussion and we lessen the amount of discretionary, this is an area I think I'm going to need help with that group to help with the Primrose. Yeah, that's what it is. So yeah, thank
Pull
you.
it out.
So I just wanted to mention that because I know we're talking. Yeah. So. Supervisor Sabatier?
Just a brief question. This is based on the agreement that right now is kind of going through some discussions to amend or renew the funds that we're receiving, or is this the federal funds that we receive?
There's federal and state.
In the state, it'd be $500,000, and the Fed would.
So the agreement with Calpine is in the other geothermal.
It's not an agreement with Calpine. These are the royalty funds that come from the state and federal government. Half of them are restricted, half of them are unrestricted. And they go to pay different things like aquatic weed abatement, a sheriff's office, a deputy, different things.
Okay, no, I'll ask outside,
All right.
offline.
Okay.
Okay, so next is Budget Unit 2101, which is trial courts. The purpose of this budget unit is to receive revenues from the collection of court-imposed fines and fees, a portion of which are then paid to the state as required by state law. Another function is to appropriate funding and receive state reimbursement for county costs related to the transfer of court facilities. This is also where the maintenance and operating costs for the fourth floor of the courthouse are.
All right. Not seeing any questions. Grand jury.
Next is 2106, grand jury. So this is a state mandated function of county general fund, and we are required to finance it. Grand jury serves as a group of impartial citizens that review the work of the county, cities, schools, special districts, and other local agencies to determine whether they can be made more efficient, effective, and responsive to the needs of the community.
Supervisor Sabatier?
So maybe I'm being petty and I apologize, but we had a situation where the grand jury went over their budget, brought it to the Board of Supervisors for approval, and I guess in a roundabout way of response, why can't I find it? We just increased the budget the following year by an extra $10,000 or $15,000, and from what I understand right now, current expenses are at about $70,000, and I just think that that's adding a whole lot more money than necessary if that's where they're at currently with their expenses. So I'd like to bring it back down to what it should be, and I think that looking at $75,000 or $77,000 would be good.
We need to hear from the board.
I'm trying to see where you're at. The requested amount is 92. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying, to bring it down to 77?
Yeah. In 23, 24, we approved for 76, and the actuals of expenditures was 87.
That's right.
And then we increased it to 98, and I'm not saying there should be consequences for going above budget, but there's a reason why we have a budget, and our response was, let's give them more money. And I think we need to walk that back a little bit more, personally.
Well, do we have an understanding on, why it's going up? Because so many costs are going up. I just want to make sure that we're being realistic. I'm fine with setting a lower budget, but, maybe we need to have a clearer understanding on what's driving up the cost.
The object costs that increased in previous years were the per diem for the grand jurors as well as travel. A lot of the grand jurors from a year or so ago lived in Hidden Valley Lake, and then their office is in Kelseyville, so the mileage for them driving in, as well as the increase, the county did approve a few years back to go with the per diem approved by the county for mileage, so that did increase.
I don't feel like I have enough info right now to know what the,
We can bring back a calculation at final once the year has closed out.
Yeah, an estimated amount of what this year is would be great.
Yeah, I'm fine where we're at, but I mean, we can have a further discussion. All right.
So next is Public Defender, Budget Unit 2111. So we are still transitioning from being a contracted department to being the county department that it is. So Ray Buenaventura is coming up.
Good morning, Board. Let me just get my notes here. So, first I want to thank you all for the budget and for the allocations you've given my office. We have come a long way. Actually, this month is our 1-year anniversary of taking on cases. Mind you, we just started taking on cases June of last year. We are ahead of what we were projected to do. We were not supposed to take cases yet, but because of things happening with the transition and with LID, we had to accelerate our development of our office, and we've done that. So we are now responsible for taking all felony and misdemeanor cases in criminal court, and we are making significant progress in becoming fully operational, but we're not there yet. We've hired some great people. We have been able to provide justice for many. I believe we have established the foundation necessary for a premier public defender's office in California. We continue to be fiscally responsible. I understand completely the tone this board is setting in its conservative principles and the need to watch the taxpayers' money. So we continue to keep that in mind in the decisions that we make. We've done everything from getting second-hand used furniture to applying for and getting grants to help the services that we provide. One example is that we are giving, we've gotten a grant from the Immigration and Legal Resource Center that provides us legal counsel so that we can counsel our immigrant community on some of the rights that they have. You should also know that just last June 13th, SB 101 and AB 101 was recently passed. That bill provided $15 million to the Public Defender's Office. That bill, according to its language in the text, gives the money to the state public defender, who will then allocate based on need to the various public defenders' offices. I'm excited about that. I'm monitoring that, and you better believe that I'm going to seek some of those funding if we can get it. So there's more to come. We are going to fill all the allocations that you've provided me, and I expect that we're going to have a more productive and a better year to come. So thank you for that. Any questions?
Supervisor Owen?
I'm just, of course, concerned a great deal about the cost. It's went from 2023, 2024 to from, excuse me, 690,000 up to almost 4 million in a couple of years. And I have some huge concerns about if that's in the best interest of the county and our taxpayer here in the county.
Okay.
May I answer that? So that is moving from the contract. So we had a contract with LID, which was about, I believe, 1.7 million, to now having employees that are county employees. So that's why there's that increase.
And I understand that, and that's exactly what I'm saying, actually. Thank you for bringing that up, but that's exactly, that's my point.
Yeah. And not only that,
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the additional other expenses? It's ancillary.
and there's also ancillary services that we are paying for, as well as reaching parity with the DA's office. Their budget is closer to 5 million.
Yeah, and I just don't know if the level of service has increased to warrant that big, that significant of an increase to our budget. So if we were getting proper service, and I can't imagine attorneys that we're hiring not doing their job, I'm just asking the question, is it worth having this department at that level of an expense for the county if we were taking care of our people properly before with contract help?
Well,
Go ahead.
that's the issue. So according to the Sixth Amendment report, we were not.
And the Sixth Amendment report is, they're benefiting from this?
The Sixth
I'm
Amendment?
questioning whether how good that report was, whether whether it's a conflict.
I'm not sure. I don't see how.
Supervisor Sabatier?
If Supervisor Owen is done.
Yes.
Well, you moved your pen forward, so I thought maybe you wanted.
I wanted to respond, but I also
Thank
didn't
you.
want
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I think that no matter what, we should have seen an increase if we stayed with LID in order to enhance what was happening. I think there were already conversations prior that never brought up those enhancements to us. So I think we would have seen an increase, maybe not all the way to what it is now. And I don't believe that we will get perfect parity with the district attorney, as there's different needs and requirements for each one. I do have concerns about the overall cost of the building that we currently are leasing. I think that is a very high cost, but at the same time, there's something needed to be done, because being in the closet, which was not necessarily the case, but tiny area for the amount of folks working in the department, was not an appropriate place, and at that point in time, we didn't have a better choice. But I'm still concerned on what I see. Because, I mean, it went up to 175, 145, I forget where it was here. I had it just in front of me. But I see that we also reduced our projections for maintenance, building, and improvements from 250 to 0. Once we're done with the moving in and any of the changes that were required, I know there's some capital improvements that were done. Maintenance is done by the property owner, or is it going to be done by us? Because I'm seeing we have it at 0 at this moment in time.
The maintenance is being taken care of by the property owner. There might be some modifications that might be needed, and we'll talk about that if they develop.
Okay. Again, I think that either way we would have seen an increase. I think, to me, the most important part, which is completely outside of the budget, is the oversight committee moving forward, which we just discussed recently. I want to see that happen. I think we got some good folks on there, and that being a public meeting will also bring other folks around to make sure that we answer the right questions and hold ourselves accountable for what we're supposed to do. At this moment in time, other than my concerns, I have no changes that I would like to offer, but I think we do need to pay attention, because the cost is high. I have the same issues with jail medical. It's one of those required things we need to do, but the cost keeps going through the roof. But we just need to make sure that the service is what people should be getting, and that oversight committee, in my opinion, will help us get a better understanding of all that.
And I think in some of my concern is going over and beyond what we're asking for, providing services that are not required. So scaling back on services that we're not obligated to give and to bring forward, I think might help with that as well.
I understand. I mean, I will say that the nuts and bolts and the core of establishing a public defender's office is the primary focus of my administration. So we are going to give what the public requires in terms of their defense. I had spoken when I first got into this position about developing a more holistic approach to representation, which gives that extra care and concern for public defender clients. That, I understand, is perhaps a reach and a goal that may not be attainable now because of fiscally what we find ourselves in. I'm mindful of that. That is why I'm doing things like looking at other grants to see if they can provide the support, the money, to help develop some of these other programs. I absolutely believe it is necessary to have a holistic approach to criminal defense representation. But I also do believe the most important priority is to give them the basic Sixth Amendment protections that they're entitled to. So that's my goal.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Should we continue or open? Okay.
Continue. It's all part of the same.
Okay. And we'll open it up after.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So next is Budget Unit 2115, Domestic Violence Programs.
Yes, we're going to do it at the end of all of these. All right. Good.
So Budget Unit 2115, Domestic Violence Programs. So this is,
Oh, he left, and we're going to do questions at the end. Yeah.
Matthew will come, someone will come.
I think it's important for him to still be here because
Yeah.
we're,
If we're not going to open up
if there's
questioning.
other things that come up.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead and continue.
So domestic violence programs, so this is pursuant to state and federal law. Legal representation must be provided to indigent defendants who, in the opinion of the court, do not have the financial resources to retain the services of a private attorney. So this is a essentially pass-through, and it goes to Lake Family Resource Center.
All right.
Next is Budget Unit 2305.
We do have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Came after.
Did we get an annual report on that?
I will have to look into that.
Just because, I mean, pass-through is great, but I haven't really seen or heard much about what we're actually getting out of that. I'm sure they're doing something, but I'd like to get a better idea and concept of what we get out of it.
Sure. I will follow up on that.
All right.
All right. So next is Budget Unit 2305, Criminal Justice Programs. This budget is currently at 0 for this year. It accounts for funding allocated to the Criminal Justice Facilities Temporary Construction Fund. And this is non-discretionary revenues, but there are currently no revenues in there. Next is Budget Unit 7999, which is contingencies. This budget unit serves as the contingency fund for all general fund budgets. The source of funding for this budget unit is one-time general fund discretionary revenues carried over from prior fiscal years.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, just a quick question. The world around us gets more and more expensive, but our contingency seems to be pretty stagnant for the last 10 or more years. Is there ever going to be a need to increase the contingency at one point or another?
We were actually just talking about increasing that this upcoming year. So at final budget, we plan on increasing it.
Okay.
Not that I want to, but it just seemed
You
that
never
one of
know.
those
I was
irregularities.
thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Next is Budget Unit 8826. This is for the redevelopment obligations. The purpose of this budget unit is to repay the housing loan and general fund loans made by the county to the former redevelopment agency, with 80% allocated to Budget Unit 1120 and 20% to Budget Unit 8894 for housing projects. This is funded by the Redevelopment Property Tax Trust Fund. Next is Budget Unit 8894, which is the Redevelopment Housing Successor Agency. So the purpose of this budget unit is to account for assets, liabilities, and obligations of the former low and moderate income housing fund. It was part of the now dissolved Lake County Redevelopment Agency.
Supervisor Sabatier?
We still have, I know the last one we did was the Collier Avenue. I think that was kind of the last of the redevelopment stuff that we kind of reworked in order to make it happen. Are we still having to deal with financial impacts from working all of that, or are we done entirely? Because I know the city of Clear Lake still has projects and land, but I thought we were either done or just kind of curious as to how much longer we got to keep this going, this thing that doesn't exist anymore.
Just letting you know, the auditor's office in property tax, we continue to do the annual report through the Department of Finance.
And how long do we have to keep doing this since it doesn't exist anymore?
To 2032?
I think it's 2032, but we can double check.
And they're not all dissolved, but our county is, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So two more. So Budget Unit 9917, Health and Wellness. This is held by the Human Resources Department, and it is a internal service fund which is restricted to the purpose of employee health and wellness related to health, dental, and/or vision. And our last one is unemployment, Budget Unit 9918. So this is also an internal service fund managed by Human Resources to pay the cost of unemployment claims that are filled by former county employees. Unemployment claims are investigated and administered by a third-party administrator in coordination with HR staff.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the public since we're finished, and I know we've asked our questions already, so if you have a question about any of the budget items throughout this, please come up and.
Good morning. Still, Rob Brown, Kelseyville. I just had a couple questions about the public defender budget for clarification. First of all, I would recommend, I'm not going to assume that it's been read or not. I mean, it was big and it was actually not very thorough. They didn't even bother talking to the judges, unfortunately, but I would recommend that the board members, especially the new ones, read the Sixth Amendment report. And then those that have read it probably should read it again now that, you got the program going, make sure it's meeting the goals some of the goals that were intended. But the question, the first thing I have is that you brought up the idea of parity with the DA's office. Is that a stated goal to try to do? And I'm not putting you on the spot. You were just the one that said it, so I don't know if that's something that.
Yeah, as far as attorneys and investigators go, we are seeking parity with the number of each.
Okay, so just to consider this is one of those dynamics in that public defender program that you need to consider. The DA's office handles all the criminal cases. Public defender's office does not. So there doesn't need to be parity. There just need to be effective efficiency with the cases that they're getting. There's a lot of cases that are handled by private defense attorneys, and you don't have to worry about them. So the parity isn't an issue. And I might be wrong on this. I'm not sure, but I think the investigative reports that the DA's office investigators have can be used by the defense attorney, because they're not supposed to be biased. They're supposed to be the facts that are just included, so both sides can use that same report in those investigations. I think there may be some things that need to be done differently, but I'm hoping that we can trust the DA investigators enough to be able to use those reports and not necessarily have to have investigators for both county employees, which brings me to another subject. You talked about the cost going up because they're county employees. Does this budget also include the cost for conflict attorneys?
It does, yes.
Okay, because conflict attorneys are not county employees.
Correct.
And that has gone up exponentially, given the nature of how the public defender's office works now. If there's a conflict with an attorney, it's typically a conflict with the entire public defender's slate of attorneys. So an attorney has to be hired. So there's a lot more of those being hired now than before. And those cases, you're going to find will typically go to trial more because that attorney's getting an hourly rate as opposed to, trying to get this thing resolved and, justice served and move on to the next case, the caseload. So those are just things to consider. That's a high cost that needs to be monitored pretty closely, I think. So you answered my question about the.
All right. Any other public input? Betsy, if you're still on, did you have your question or comment? There she goes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a general comment that goes all the way back to the very beginning of this conversation. The Board of Supervisors is responsible for all of the ordinances that are administered by this section of the budget. And there are several major municipal codes that are significantly out of date. And I have attempted, through correspondence with the administration, inclusive of using the citizens' complaint form, to identify how those major changes will be made, those updates will be made. Unfortunately, I think I got caught in a bureaucratic loop where my inquiries were referred back to the Community Development Department, and the Community Development Department's answer was not meaningful. So I'm just calling your attention to the fact that maybe you need a project or a subject of discussion by the board of your needed changes. One of those significant changes is to the Article 64 of the zoning ordinance, called Environmental Protection Guidelines, and the fact that the Planning Commission itself does not have thresholds and standards of determination for cumulative impacts. I've spoken to you before about this and written to you about it, but I'm just calling this to your attention because it's within the administration budget. It's under the Board of Supervisors' responsibility area. And I just think that I really think you should undertake to bring those codes up to date. Some of them are so badly out of date, they're meaningless. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other? All right, I'll bring it back to the board and close public input. Supervisor Sabatier?
Something else that I did not see, and it's been empty for many, many years. I don't even know how I know that this budget unit exists, but it looks like a while back there used to be a pension stabilization fund. There's nothing in there. There's no reserves in there. I know that there's a lot of folks who have retired and are relying on us to make good decisions to ensure that pension continues. If there's a way in the future, I don't have a time frame whatsoever, to talk about what is our pension liability, where do we stand with that liability, especially with the raises that we've provided in the last 5 to 7 years, which have been pretty large raises in comparison to the past. And so I see nothing there, and I don't know where we stand and what's required of us. And so I think it would be a good discussion to at least alert us to what that liability is, if the rest of the board agrees with that. I feel like I'm flying blind on that.
I'm in favor of getting more info on that because it's a.
I remember it.
I remember it too.
I don't remember it, but I'm in favor of it.
You were gonna put your pen up?
Yes, I was. Actually, I had a couple things on the budget, and are we going on to the, I had noticed, I had actually went and met with somebody, and they had kind of helped me through the budget. So one of the questions was, we have yeses on the funding for the capital asset list on every single item, which means that it's, could be funded, everything that we talked about today, on July 1st, rather than pulling out the things that need to be funded early. And so for final budget, we're already funded, basically according to our current stature, and that would be under your capital assets tab. So it's a concern why everything is, rather than pulling out the things that actually need to be funded early, that everything is funded on July 1st. Can you explain that?
Sure. So everything on the capital asset list that we have put forward for your approval today is funded mostly by grants or special funding sources. And so the funds are there for all of these projects. We did not include ones that do not have funding.
Okay, I didn't really see any that didn't have a yes by it, but isn't the purpose of coming back for a final to actually fund, that we're going to fund at that time?
If there's additional, there are some requests that we did not include here, and so that's why there's no no's next to them, because we didn't even include them on there as something that was going forward because it doesn't have funding. So once we know what the carryover is for general fund purposes, then we would add in additional capital assets if there are any.
Okay, and according to the coaching I had, that it's usually more appropriate to pull out the things that we actually have to fund immediately and then wait for final to actually fund the rest of the items. No? No. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, the way,
Well, I only got this from Kelly Cox, this information, so.
one thing
thought he
though
would-
is, the reason that is because a lot of these projects have things that they have to start working on with the bids and everything, and if they weren't a yes for funding, they wouldn't be able to do that until the final adoption in, the end of September is my understanding. So potentially would hold up getting those projects going if we didn't give the initial approval.
And if there's an adjustment to the funds by final, because there were some things that we talked about in there that we're not clear on, it's already funded, and potentially the monies could all be taken out before final. So I have an issue with it. I'm just going to leave that on the table right there, that I do have an issue with that.
Go ahead, Sue.
If I may, Chair. For those items that we're going to come back and discuss before final, we, of course, will be monitoring those. They're primarily ours. Am I not mistaken? So no expense will be expended until we figure out what the board has decided to do at that point in time. But what we don't want to do is delay the purchase of the truck, the purchase of the oil to do crack sealing, and all that can be purchased beginning July 1st. That's the purpose of this. That's right.
Yeah, and I totally understand that there's a portion of it. I just don't know that all the funds should be approved during the draft, during the first.
I think Lars talked about that yesterday. If he's online, maybe he can bring it up again.
I mean, there's everything is funded.
Supervisor Spatier?
If I may, I wanted to say something else, but I'd like to speak to that. I do agree that it should be there, and there's good reason why it's there, but I do agree that there's some confusion. Some of them, it's just that money is allocated, and we probably won't even see that project happen this year. And I think it's not very well defined as to, are we waiting to collect? Like why I was asking last year, we asked for dates. When did this get added to the capital asset list? When do we think this project will be completed? There is no timeline, and it makes it very confusing as to why it's on the list. It looks like to somebody who is new or somebody who in the public who's a layman to looking at this budget that this is everything we're planning to do this year when it's not. It's what we've allocated the funds for. Some of these projects will get completed. Some of them will continue collecting because we need 2 million. We only have 500, but we don't want to spend the 500. We want to keep it allocated for that specific project. So I think the capital asset list needs some improvements and refinements to better at least explain to the public, better explain to us when we're talking to the public, so that we're aware of where we stand with these specific projects. And so I think as we get back to that other conversation with the timelines, we'll get a better understanding of what the capital asset list really shows. I understand why we want to allocate it. In my opinion, that's what the yes means. It's just an allocation. It's not a yes, it's funded and will happen and be constructed. But it does get confusing when it doesn't explain that. It's a learn as you go, unfortunately, but if we can simplify it to better explain it and not make it overcomplicated for staff, I think that would be great. One of my questions that I have is, we had $11 million of carryover, at least for general fund. Do we have an identified list of one-time costs that the $11 million is going to, rather than going into continuous costs, just to at least be able to identify, here's the 11 million, it's going to this specific project, that specific project, rather than back into like salaries or things like that, which would be continuous cost, where we shouldn't rely on carryover balances for ongoing costs.
As far as a specific list, I would have to look into that. We do have a list of items that were approved as extraordinary requests as one time, and that was just over 5 million. Other than that, I'll have to look into the budgets a little further.
Yeah, if there's a way to explain where the other 6 million is going, so that it doesn't appear that it's going back into ongoing, I think that would be really good, just because we don't want to get ourselves in that potential hole. And I do want to go back, and I apologize to the public defenders. I was looking at the capital asset list, and I completely forgot to ask. There's a auto light truck that is being requested, and I'm just curious as to the specificity of what that use would be for. I know that you guys are right down the street. I know you probably go to the jail. Just kind of curious what the plan is with that truck and that expenditure. And I'm sorry, I forgot to ask that question at the better time earlier when you were up here.
So we have allocations for vehicles. The vehicles that we use are primarily for our investigators to use. We also have a third vehicle that has a, what do you call that, a cage. It's a cage vehicle, and we use that also to transport some of our clients that are in need to go to perhaps substance abuse programs and things like that. I think that the theory behind having a truck also will help in terms of transporting if we need to transport some of the items that they have, some of the office supplies that we need, things like that. So as far as utility to serve the office as well as our clients.
I apologize for this question. Is it standard for public defenders to drive a cage truck and bring folks to the services or wherever it is that they need to go?
Yeah, so what we are doing is we are leaving it up to the sheriff and probation first. If they are not able to accommodate the transportation, then we've taken it upon ourselves to do it. We have, at least in the beginning, tried to just not do it at all. But because the need is there in terms of the client needs to get to their rehabilitation programs and things like that, we found it necessary to try to help them.
I'm not going to change anything. I have concerns as far as the safety and the liability. So I don't know if there needs to be further discussions, but I want to just at least share verbally that I have concerns in that. I know that I share that same concern with, I know behavioral health was taking some of these cage cars as well, which aren't ambulance rigs. They're a lot less safe than those types of situations. But I share the same concern. So I hope we can have good internal discussions on how best to deal with that to keep your staff safe and to make sure that the clientele you're working with gets to the services they need, because the last thing I want to do is prohibit them from accessing that. Just sharing my concern.
I will, if I may, I will also tell you, I share the same concern, and that's why we needed a caged car. And in addition to that, we want it equipped with video cameras, just to make sure. And in addition to that, we're trying to come up with a policy that there be at least 2 people in that car, so that they're witnesses and there's nothing could happen. So we're fully aware of the concern, we're mindful of that, and we're working towards a policy that will protect everybody.
And that is currently active in that
The cage car?
your staff is doing those things?
Yes.
Okay. I'll check in with you and CAO Parker, just because, again, my concerns are pretty large.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I have
Go ahead.
one more thing, and that is, when is the final budget due? When do we have to have that done by?
October 3rd.
Okay, is there any way to move our final budget hearing a little earlier so we have some time to go through this? Because this just feels really rushed on the preliminary. And so is there a way to, so we have some time if we need to make adjustments to have a couple of weeks or a month?
You mean before
Before, bring it to us before it's due.
Oh, you mean have us
Yes.
have it sooner than okay,
Yeah.
I get
To
it.
be able to have our hearings, so that if there's anything to change, it'd just be nice to have a little cushion there, rather than, right now, we're up against the wall on our deadlines.
Just to confirm, you're not talking about an earlier hearing, you just want the materials?
No, the earlier in hearing, yes.
In September?
Yes, yes.
What's the date in September?
It's September 23rd.
Oh, okay.
Supervisor Sabatier?
If I may respond to that, not that we don't have the ability to change it, but I would say keep that in mind in December when we set our calendar for the
Okay.
following year.
Okay.
Just because this is how we calendar for the years for when staff should expect
Okay.
to be ready.
Perfect.
I don't disagree that if there are changes, it does feel like we're kind of always up against a wall. Just like today, we're kind of up against a wall. We need to have this done by June 30th. We don't meet again until after June 30th.
Right.
But at the same time, I know that there's a lot of time and energy that gets placed into it. If you don't mind, I'm going to say something else that I know you and I discussed, and I would love to find a way to make it happen, but a week is a difficult amount of time to digest the amount of information that is there. And if there's ever a way to allow at least 2 weeks to be able to go through, have conversations, it's a large amount of material, not just for Board of Supervisors to be prepared with information and questions to come here, but also for the public to be able to digest. It's a 500-page document, almost 450, and there's a lot of details in it, and still lots of questions because it's not exactly a novel.
Short, yeah. Please. Well, let's see, I can speak to a little bit to final, not to the recommended, but just to keep in mind that when we close the fiscal year, it's June 30, but there's a 60-day accrual period where we're still paying invoices on prior year and still reconciling. And so it really isn't until August 30th that it's closed, and then we can start providing information. So we really are looking at about 3 weeks to take all of that and then prepare a final, like just using this example with a hearing on September 23rd. So that's, so just kind of keeping that in mind. I understand your frustration. That is our world trying to
Sure.
stay.
And I understand the challenges, absolutely. But as I said, I have been trying to get into this, and I am new to a budget like this. And I know that in prior, we had been having it, about a month earlier or at least a few weeks earlier, so that if we have changes, we can have some conversations, and we do have that time where it doesn't, and like I said, there's a lot of information in there for everybody.
And it'll just a little bit to that. There have been times where we had a 45-day accrual period, bringing it up about 2 weeks, but then we found there were more mistakes. So it is something that I'm evaluating. So last year we did the 60-day, which is really standard. But not to say that we couldn't try to provide information ahead of time. It's usually one-offs during that period. But not to say we can't help, but I just wanted to let you know the timeline that we're
But
under.
I think with this one, we have this actual budget book, and the changes that are going to come towards the end, we can identify with what we have right here, knowing those are going to come. And if we, I like the 2 weeks. I'm not trying to take away from that, but at the same time, we have now this book, and whatever changes we make or discussions we have throughout this time frame to that time frame, you have a reference point at least.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And I think we're also going to have some other conversations before the deadline.
And that's what I'm looking for, is to be able to have some time to look into issues that were brought up during the budget.
Can I just confirm? So the goal is to have more time to review, not necessarily to approve final earlier in the year.
I would like to have it come forward earlier.
So the whole, okay.
Yeah, yep, that's what I'm asking.
So an additional week to review and an earlier hearing?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
If everybody agrees, I just think
I
if it's possible.
wouldn't know how to accommodate that under current standards, but we can definitely look at it.
Yeah, and just,
But all the items that we brought up that we want to take a deeper dive and look at, we can do that before.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that will help with the concerns, so that, the things that we're okay with.
A lot of when you hear, we're waiting for FBA. So when you hear anything that's waiting for FBA, that's waiting for us to finalize all of the last minute payments that we're making all the way through the accrual period. So admin doesn't know what the final number is until all of that is finished. And so just to speak to that, that's what they're waiting on. Yeah, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you want to hear from Laura?
No, was there a reason?
Oh, okay.
No, no, I didn't know that they called you back in, Lars. That wasn't me that brought you in. I was
It was
asking.
me, I suggested it, and he magically appeared, but because about writing yes on all the.
Well, that was every department. It was the fact that I understand, and I made that statement that I understand some things need to be funded now. My question was that whether everything in this document needed to be funded on June 30th. That was my question.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, then I won't answer that question because that's certainly beyond me.
Sorry, Lars.
No, that's perfectly okay. For the majority of projects that we indicated yes for authorization come July 1, we do need them for the capital projects. They're either, we anticipate going into contract. In order to go into contract, we need to have the appropriation. So
Yeah,
for
and
those projects, yes.
I apologize, Lars. I thought I was
problem.
very clear that I understood that there were some that absolutely needed to have a yes, but to be honest, I didn't find a no
Okay.
in the book.
Yeah, and
So,
that's-
and there may have been one, but I didn't see any. I went through and everything was funded, and I asked if that was necessary.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, so anything that had a no next to it, we just didn't include because there's no funding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we still have to go through these before we get to the end. Supervisor Sabatier?
Just as an add-on, can we see the list that had no's on it? Would that be possible to send to us? Just because I am curious if we're being taken away the opportunity to make a decision on what priorities for projects there are, or if it's specifically because of the category of funding that was received, it can't be used for these other projects. Just brought out questions. Not looking to make changes, but if there are opportunities to say, you know what, this one became a much higher priority than this one, if we're not seeing the projects that got a no, then maybe we're not seeing the opportunity to pivot and make some changes.
Sure, so they are prioritized by the department head, and so that's how funding is allocated for the general fund, that is. But otherwise, yes, we can absolutely bring that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm giving him another chance to have another thought and put his pen up.
I'll take a drink.
All right, let's go through these.
So we had conversations, but did we actually amend anything?
I don't
Yes,
believe we.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I think we did.
Which one?
My-
Which ones? Yeah.
well,
Oh,
my-
keep a track.
Well, my understanding is that we have some direction, but the one that we were going to amend is the 50,000 removed from the general fund, and discuss that later when we have the larger cannabis
And I
discussion.
don't think that was the only one.
So it's, I
Well-
think the motion would be that it's removed.
We can keep it, but we're just not allocating it to
Or
one
we
team,
can,
one
we
group.
can not allocate it at this point.
And the further
Correct.
discussion will
For further
clarify that.
Right.
Yeah.
Leave it in there.
So
We'll
it's
leave it.
there.
The discussion's
We
gonna
just don't know.
specify how we use.
Just like the same with the chamber stuff, it's in there, but
Right.
further discussion.
There was also something yesterday that you pulled out of some of this, and I don't, because I made notes in the book, so I can't tell you where it's at.
I think I just said find the money. I don't think I pulled it out of
It's
it.
just
then-
these last budget
Yeah, it's just for
items.
these ones.
So then we're approving it as
Okay.
is with the direction for further discussion.
And then
Right.
amend it,
Well, and
final hearing.
Lloyd,
And amend it.
Chair Crandall, I am so sorry. I do have one more
I,
item,
I knew,
and I forgot.
I knew.
Supervisor Owen and I have had discussions with the road department about an issue that is happening on Lake Street in Lower Lake, and the need to move forward with planning and designing a safer street for Lower Lake Elementary and Lower Lake High School, where there is a huge, huge impact from the population of students, the population of parents, and the other.
I'm gonna add to that, because I have the same issue in Upper Lake. So
I
if
got
you
an
guys are
issue with
doing-
that too.
Yeah.
I think our CAO just had a heart attack. And there was a proposal that was provided to the road departments for $30,000 to design what that would look like. Granted, that's not construction. And that we were looking to ask if it was possible to pull it out of the cannabis program under the risk reduction, since it would reduce risk to students. And that bucket has about $1 million. And $30,000 we felt was an appropriate amount to look at, not looking for construction, just looking to get it planned so that then we have access to be able to find grants to be able to make that construction happen. So I just wanted to put it out there. I had completely forgotten about that, and I apologize. It looks like I woke up a beast.
Let's also include then Main Street in Kelseyville. You say there's a very bad traffic issue there. We've been dealing with it for years, and it needs a redesign as well.
I think this is a little different. This is our school kids. It's the most populated school in the county. And and they've been dealing with it for quite a while.
So
Well,
is
the,
Upper
mer-
Lake.
yeah, the.
And
mer-
I know
the-
Upper Lake.
I mean, Kelseyville, there are people, they drive very, very fast, and there are kids walking all the time. The business community has been complaining for years. It's a really similar issue.
I know that when Mr. March was here, he talked about your Lower Lake School issue in Upper Lake and how similar those were. I know that in the middle of, down the road from the school where folks are using this road more often, there is a spot where Middle Creek meets, and there's been accidents frequently. There's no yield, there's a yield sign, there's not even really a stop sign or anything, there's been accidents there, so it's like a very similar type of deal when it comes to the danger there, yeah. Lars, did you?
Yep, this is all new to me, and I think probably most everyone else. I doubt anyone, excuse me, in public works staff is aware of these conversations. So I just wanted to come up and say that it may be related to budgets, but we'll need some time to really flush out, will $30,000 work? We're talking about one road and then another and then another. I want to caution really what we're signing up for. If you say yes for something now, I don't know that I can respond, nor the other interim public works director can respond about our ability to provide what you would be looking for. So if there's money there, great, but I think it merits some additional conversations, to include conversations with Lake APC staff. They do a lot of They do a lot of the transportation planning. You know, there is not a transportation planner in your Public Works Department. The transportation planning really is done through your Regional Transportation Planning Agency, which is Lake APC. So I think there's some value there. I will also offer or just suggest, it may be an odd way, but Blue Zones. Blue Zones brought in a transportation planning expert who did some evaluations. So there could be an opportunity to at least look at what's there.
You just opened up a wound.
Understood. I'll say so did you when bringing this up, but not in a bad way. That was glibly stated.
We denied Blue Zones the ability to deal with Lake Street.
Okay.
And took it on ourselves to take care of it, hence why it was worked out that it would be brought up during this budget hearing for allocation.
Okay, fair enough. And just more to come. I can't really respond too much on the scope of what was discussed, obviously, with the former Public Works Director, but happy to discuss it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we asked for a policy
Yes.
update.
Yes.
Nice, Johanna.
Yes.
And I also requested for a deep dive into our roads. I know that Supervisor Pyska mentioned that we want our annual, what's happening this summer. I think we can have that deeper dive conversation about some of these issues that were just brought up at the last moment. But I agree with Supervisor Owen that I think school safety is a priority and that we need to
There's 3
focus on those
schools
things.
in Kelseyville too that walk on Main Street. So it's very dangerous.
So
Mr. Chair, without any further comments, I'm ready to make a motion to approve these last final budgets.
All right.
As amended?
Hmm?
As amended?
As amended.
Thank you.
Lloyd?
So typically, the practice has been to state the budget unit numbers that your board is approving.
I'm going to do, I was just checking in to
yeah.
see if he was ready
We're
for
ready.
me.
Yeah, we're ready.
And as
and-
far as the as amended portion, I'm confirming with staff. It appears there may be some amendments to budget unit 1011 and 1778.
Just 1778. 1011 will leave for final or further discussion.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I move to approve budget units 1011, 1012, 1014, 1072, 1120, 1124, 1341, 1778, 1781, 1794, 1796, 1891, 1892, 1918, 2101, 2106, 2111, 2115, 2305, 7999, 8826, 8894, 9917, and 9918, including the amendment to 1781.
And Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
budget unit 1798, I believe
Correct.
should be included as well.
All right.
1790.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1785.
85,
Yeah,
thank you.
85.
Whole different block.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Well,
Was
One
there,
second.
was there an amendment to 1785 as well?
No, but the amendment was to 1778, not 1781.
Isn't that what I said? I amended to 1778?
Can we do that, Lloyd? Or do
What
we
hasn't
have
been
to-
taken, so amended motion.
I make an amended motion so that it's 1778 that is changed and amended, not 1781. My apologies.
Okay, so I do have a motion and a second. Is there anything else? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then I think that after that, we have to complete. Yeah. You have to do a complete. And
thank you, everybody.
thank you. So there's the recommended action to approve, adopt, and then authorize.
Right.
We need to offer the resolution?
But I think we have to approve the motion first, right?
A, I believe, is approve the motion.
Yeah.
So I'll make that motion to approve the fiscal year 25-26 recommended budget.
And Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes,
in
please.
addition to that motion, with the amendments as reflected and approved by your board that was made throughout the presentations.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
And
I'll offer the resolution
resolution has been offered
And Mr.
with
Chair-
amendments.
Yes.
with amendments as amended.
Supervisor Owen,
Aye.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Rasmussen,
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Crandall.
Aye.
As C, I'll move to adopt the purchase capital assets prior to approval of the adopted budget
And Mr. Chair, if I
as
may,
amended.
I believe so, in confirmation with staff, right, as amended.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That concludes everything. Is there anything I missed? All right, with that, we will adjourn, and we will see you at the, I think it's July 7th, July 8th meeting.
I think it's the 8th.
It is the 8th, yep, the 8th. So we're adjourned. All right.